I call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Knopf.
Here.
Mr. Donahue.
Here.
Ms. Greenfield.
Here.
Mr. Haddon.
Here.
Mr. O'Day.
Here.
Mr. Schmidt is absent. Ms. Zamara.
Here.
Notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News, Courier News, and the Star Ledger, filed with the municipal clerk, and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 11th, 2018. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We don't have any presentations, so at this point we welcome comments from the public. We try and keep them to 5 minutes. We have this lovely little timer, which is longer than you think once you get up here. Please, if you want to make a comment, come up to the microphone and just state your name and address so that Anthony can get it in the record. If you're going to read a statement, give Anthony a copy so we can have it in the record. And please, let's all be respectful and civil. All right, anyone want to come up? Greg?
My name is Greg DeGrandpre. I live at 7 Flintlock Court. Tonight I'm here to speak on behalf of Somerset Hills Little League regarding the discussion around organic and synthetic fertilizers used at Kiwanis Field and possibly other fields as well in town. On April 24th, the board of Somerset Hills Little League met for an hour with Councilwoman Christine Zamara, Doug Walker, Chris, and Melanie Moran to discuss the possible fertilization treatments for grass at Kiwanis Field. We appreciate the discussion, information, and time spent by all individuals that evening. Our board members' unanimous concern is that there currently is not a plan for treating the fields to keep them in the excellent condition that they have been in for the last 2 years. The town has stopped its synthetic treatment, but is not committed to the full organic treatment plan described by Mr. Moran. To the best of our knowledge, the town has not committed the additional resources that would be needed to keep the fields in the current excellent condition as described by Mr. Moran. We know from recent past experiences that just treating the fields with organic fertilizers, as we are doing now, will not keep the fields as healthy as they have been the last 2 years. We ask that for the remainder of the 2019 season, which ends in October, the town continues with the synthetic treatment process they had planned to use to keep the fields excellent. It is an especially important year for us that the fields continue to look excellent throughout the summer as we host a regional tournament finals that will bring in visitors to Bernardsville from the greater Morris and Somerset County areas. There's a great element of pride that our league members take in helping keep the fields looking great and that the town of Bernardsville reflects well in the eyes of those that visit Kiwanis Field. Continuing with the current planned synthetic treatment will allow the town and council times to learn soil test results, examine costs, and determine what the best method is for the town. If the town decides on a new method for the future and is willing to commit the resources to achieve the same results that we have now, we will not object to starting that new process in the 2020 season. Thank you.
Okay, do you have a copy? Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Anyone else? Rosalie?
Rosalie Valentine, Environmental Commission. We would like to read a letter into the record, and I have copies here.
Yeah.
Would you like them now?
We did get it emailed, but if anyone didn't check their email, I think it just came today, so if you want a copy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Dear Mayor and Council, the Bernardsville Environmental Commission has reviewed the proposed open space referendum, which would allow...
I'm sorry, we can't hear very well.
Well, that's not a microphone. It records. It doesn't make it louder.
This one does?
No, I think that still records. Boo. No, they're not microphones.
Yeah, just talk about that way.
They're only recording.
Yeah.
Dear Mayor and Council, the Bernardsville Environmental Commission has reviewed the proposed open space fund referendum, which would allow up to 80% of future municipal open space tax revenues to be diverted to improvements on open space based on recommendations to council from an ad hoc committee. We discussed and agreed upon the following comments on this at our last meeting last Wednesday. The Bernardsville Environmental Commission does not support inclusion of the proposed open space tax ballot question on the November 2019 ballot for the following reasons. The proposed 80-20 split or any increase in allowable open space funds for improvement is much too generous and premature for a municipality with ample open space acquisition opportunities remaining. The referendum proposal of an 80-20 split, or even a 50-50, is premature, as the cart before the horse, and has not yet been justified, we feel. First, let's form a committee representative of the whole community whose members may be proposed so that it's comprehensive. The committee will review all proposals for improvements to open space properties and determine a list of priorities. Then, let's hold a public meeting to comment on that specific list. Finally, the question of changing percentages to the open space fund allocations can then be addressed. Bernardsville has other funding sources for improvements, as we've seen in the past. This is the only material funding mechanism for open space and should be protected as such. Next, opportunities for acquisition of key parcels have been missed. Several significant open space opportunities have been missed in recent years. Most recently, the property on the west side of town, 496 Minebrook Road, Route 202, which is partially in a floodplain and was identified as a location that offered significant active recreation open space opportunities while also protecting water quality. The property is now, if you take a look, being developed complete with a second septic system. Note the bulldozers building mounds of dirt and mud along Route 202. This property would have cost less than $650,000. It was largely cleared and could have helped to protect the riparian corridor along the Minebrook, a tributary of the North Branch of the Rapids River. Next, there must be a plan with priorities for acquisition as well as improvements from all the stakeholders, including the general public. There's an existing open space plan, and there are a variety of priorities for open space acquisition. For example, pocket parks, we could really use a lot of those. Passive and active recreation areas, parcels that provide access to existing open space tracts like Peter's Tract, as well as priorities for improvements to existing open space, such as parking areas, lighting, recreational fields, etc. In addition to a more inclusive ad hoc committee compiling and presenting these priorities, there needs to be an open public forum to gather public opinion on such priorities. In order to justify diverting of acquisition funds to improvements in excess of the current 20%, we think a specific use and needs plan from all the stakeholders in the community should be presented to council on an annual basis in advance of the application of the funds for improvements. One note, maintenance should not be part of the referendum. The draft referendum specifically states that maintenance will not be allowed as part of the open space spending. I quote, development but not maintenance, unquote. However, in the Q&A, number 8 and 15, maintenance is listed as one of the spending categories of the current draft, if the current draft referendum is passed. Last, finally, this is long, I know. If the diversion of open space acquisition funds to improvements of open space is to be considered, a representative from each of the appropriate municipal committees, commissions, and boards must be selected for this newly created ad hoc committee. The current ad hoc committee, and by the way, I looked for that recently on the website and I couldn't find it. Just by the way, the current ad hoc committee that is deciding upon the structure of the referendum and future priorities for where open space funds would be diverted under this referendum is not inclusive of key stakeholders and is not transparent to the public. The formation of this committee should be based on broader input. The Environmental Commission requests that one of our members be appointed to the committee, and we feel certain that members of other committees, municipal bodies committees, would want to be part of that committee as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosalie. But if you look on the website, I know I had a hard time finding it, but there's a report from that committee about what they've been doing, and it lists all the names of the members.
Where did you find that?
I don't know where it was.
It was on the homepage at the bottom.
It's been removed.
Has it? Okay, I'll get them to put it back then. Okay, I'll have them put it back.
Okay, because it was there, sorry. Anyone else? Steve? Oops, sorry, he raised his hand, sorry.
Are we gonna talk about this more, or?
Well, this is the public opportunity to speak. The council will discuss it, but then there's not
Should I
another.
comment on her letter now, or should I do it when it's?
No, you can comment on it right now.
So a couple of things, Steve Reynolds, Stephen Street. The 80-20 split, the 80% of that is gonna be used to help maintain these properties that we have. If it's not used, it's gonna go back into the open space fund to acquire land. So I'm not sure if everybody realizes that. It's not always gonna just be set aside for maintaining, properties, but it's gonna be used to go back into purchasing. My question is, I don't know how if we keep buying all these properties like Peter Track, how are we gonna maintain or fit out, trails and certain things with only this, 20% allocation that we have right now? I mean, the more that we buy, the more diluted that 20% gets for all our, for all our properties. So something to think about where, yes, we want to acquire space, but there's a lot of money in the fund right now, like I think 6-7 million, which is a good amount. There's still going to be at least 80-90 put into that fund, but we need to start maintaining and developing the properties that we have in a more, I think, rapid manner, because that 20% goes like that with all the properties that we have here in town. So.
Thank you. One thing I just wanted to make, come on, you can come up. I just wanted to say something. We did, in our draft, take out the word maintenance. I think as the environmental committee, maintenance should be part of the operating budget year to year. So, that sounds like mowing the grass, and that's not what we want to use this money for. So we took the word maintenance out. I think the wording we're talking about is improvements, enhancements. Yeah.
I think it's also important to note that the resolution itself did not refer to maintenance, specifically included maintenance. The Q&A, which was offered as additional information for these committees to look at and would be offered as additional information, is just that. It's additional information.
Right.
Needs to be fixed, but it was never part of the discussion anyway. I think it was just more of a typo in the wording of the Q&A. So the Q&A was provided as extra information. It's not part of the...
We're not discussing it. We're just kind of...
I just wanted to clarify for the
Right.
public.
Well, it sounds like we are, so I mean,
I
what
was
else,
just-
I jump in at some point, or let him speak, and then we can...
No, this is the public session, so I just wanted to clarify the words, and maintenance, you're right, was
I just
not
wanted to
in the
make sure
question.
that people understood it wasn't never part of the recommendation.
Right, okay.
All right, Chad McQueen, 15 Sycamore Hill. I'd like to echo many of Steve's sentiments. This is about creating budgetary flexibility for this town. As we acquire lands, those lands need to be improved. As our recreation departments continue to grow, our free spaces need improvements. This is not direct funds in one direction or another direction every year. This allows this council to decide. This does not prevent the council from seeking input from others like the environmental committee as well on how those funds get spent once they are decided which direction they go. Personally, I strongly support the 80-20 resolution. I'm hoping to see it on the November ballot, and I hope this committee votes to ratify it. Again, it's about providing budgetary discretion to our town so that way we can make appropriate trade-offs in how we spend our tax dollars.
Thank you. Somebody else? Oh, you got another one.
Good evening. Mark Stevens, 22 Tysey Street. Here representing Somerset Hill Lacrosse Club. Agree with a lot the Environmental Commission said. Certainly want input from all constituents to make the right choices for the town of Bernardsville. At the same time, similar to what Greg said, there are needs, improvements, maintenance. We have a snack shack that's falling down. We have poultry facilities compared to others out there. And I think the ability to have some financial flexibility is a prudent decision. It's not by any means a careless decision. And certainly we want to acquire whatever open space is necessary for the betterment of the town where it makes sense. But I don't think anyone wants to be bound by a number that you have to do that here and you can only do that here. I think the key part of the referendum, as I read it, was up to. It wasn't a fixed 80-20 split. It was giving the council financial flexibility to make the best decisions for the town. So similar to Chad, myself, the board of the Somerset Hills Lacrosse Club, and our league also supports the referendum. Thank you.
Anyone else?
just have a quick question.
Why was 496 Mine Brook, why was it missed or passed? Why didn't?
Why did we not purchase it?
Correct, yeah.
Again, it was a council before this council. I don't think, was anyone on the council when that decision was made?
There's a lot of wetlands, as I recall.
Well,
And
there's
that-
wetlands in the back, and I
Yeah.
think there was a lot of debate about how usable the property would be because of the wetlands. Christine, do you remember what that discussion was? I wasn't here, I don't know who else.
Yeah, that was, I think wetlands was the primary issue, as I recall, and the house might have had to be demoed. I can be misremembering, but now it looks like we have a rateable going on there, so that's not a bad outcome.
Can I ask a question, going back to the first presentation by Greg DeCrapre? Do we have to make a decision tonight about the fertilizer? I mean, is there some sort of time urgency where you have to make maybe Doug, you could weigh in, that this has to be decided rather than dragging it out?
When's the next treatment scheduled? Or when should it be scheduled if we're gonna do it?
Right, a couple of weeks.
Well, we don't meet again for another couple of weeks, so do we need
No,
to decide
we-
that now, or?
Not now, but
Well, I mean,
later, yes,
today.
tonight we
Okay.
should, yeah. After we finish the public session, yeah.
Hi, Michael Long, 22 Crest Drive in town. Thank you for the opportunity to let me speak. I'll be brief. I do not have prepared remarks, but I would echo what my colleague, Mark Stevens, Chad McQueen, had to say about the use of the funds and the discretion, the budgetary discretion that would give the council. I'm here both as a member of the Somerset Hills Lacrosse Club board, as well as a football coach for many years. I know there's members of the board, football board here. There's also many members of the lacrosse community, football community, baseball community. Just wanted to make sure that we express our support for everything that the council is capable of doing with the 80-20 referendum, but also expressing that there is a balance. There's a balance between open space acquisition and the development of our space, and this would, in our view, untie the council's hands to hopefully make efforts and follow initiatives that could help benefit our town as a whole. I mean, obviously, particularly, we have an interest in helping our kids. I mean, that's really that's what we do. We're all volunteer organizations. We do that every day, and so we're here because they can't be. Thanks.
Thank you.
Kathy Redling, 211 Claremont Road. And I'm a neighbor of Peter's Track and the two properties. Just a concern, heads up, there's serious flooding going on up in there right now. And the whole water table in that area, be careful. Something that is affecting our fields and everywhere this year, that we really need to be cognizant of that all over town. With that also, as a member of the Environmental Commission, want to remind the public that not all of our acquisitions are open space that will be recreation. It is preserving land, preserving watershed, and that's a huge part of it, so that we have to remember that. And yes, some of us are very disappointed that 496 was not purchased, and especially what's going on there now. The DEP permit, I think people didn't think realistically would ever get approved to see the construction. Well, we can't bargain that way and take those kind of chances. We did, and we lost. So I'm hoping that going forward, yeah, it looks crazy outside.
I guess you can hear it, it's raining again.
Yeah, it's, okay. One other piece that nobody's really mentioning here, that in 1960 or 61, the land was donated, and we have a beautiful town pool. That is just as important and just as much a figurehead for people coming. We have, every other year, hosted the Meet of Champions. I would like all of you who love our fields to also be champions for that swimming pool. And don't forget about it.
That's part of it. That's part of it.
Don't
Okay.
forget it, that's
I
part of it,
think
that's
it's
why.
just totally great.
Okay. And I think that's this open space is everything that the town owns, that is, whether it's a developed field or just woods or, whether it's trails, swimming pool, that's all part of what we own as open space. Open space doesn't mean there's nothing there. It can be anything, and the pool is included in that inventory.
Chad McQueen, 15 Sycamore Hill, I just want to make one additional comment. That actually is what it's about. It's not just about the fields in this town. It's about how do we take things like Peters Park and make that part of our community, make it valuable for our community. You're right, our pool is a mess. When people look to buy in our town, They look to the reasons why, right? Do we have good recreational facilities? Do we have a dog park? Do we have walking trails? Do we have pieces of land that we as a community can use? Right now, those answers are almost universally no. Or they're getting towards no, they're getting worse. We're in a flat fiscal environment. We need discretionary funds. There are trade-offs we have to make. This is one that we could make. Now, this doesn't mean forever. You know, anytime you're thinking of your house and the way your fiscal life works, maybe you're putting in a patio next year. Well, maybe the next year you're doing something to buy a piece of property. It gives the town and the community the ability to have a choice. And that's what this referendum is.
Greg?
Again, Greg Duranko, 7 Flint Court. I guess I'm speaking as maybe a member of the ad hoc committee, but just in general, like all those things that we just talked about, the dog park, walking trails, the pool. I mean, I have swimmers, and anybody that goes past or into the locker room would know that the pool needs some help. You know, Claremont Fieldhouse, if you've ever driven by it or been inside it, I think it's pretty obvious that these structures need updating. So I definitely respect what was written and read, but there's a certain degree of obviousness that we need to invest into some of the public properties, and there is no dog park, so it's not just going to magically appear. We obviously need the opportunity to have funds to build out some of these or repair some of our current recreational properties. And I just want to say all those places were considered and more. There was nothing that was excluded or limited to a ball field or anything like that. And I would just say we're really here tonight to the council asking you to give us, the members of the town, the opportunity to vote on that. Just let us have a shot. Like, there can definitely be divergent opinions, but the way it sits now, obviously we have a great crowd here tonight. I think people are interested, and I think it would be great if the public had a chance to vote if this was the way they want to see money allocated in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg. Yes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ed Caldwell. I'm at 71 Mine Mount Road. Just recently elected the president of the football program, and it just so happens that I'm dealing with the equipment shed up at the Polo Grounds. It happened on the 23rd of April. I'm going to go into a little bit of a story, just bear with me. On the 23rd of April, heard that the roof had blown off the equipment shed. Gasping, because all the football equipment, game jerseys, practice jerseys, flag football equipment, safety equipment, shoulder pads, helmets, they're all in there. On behalf of the town that allows us to store it there. Because of the maintenance of the roof blew off, water got inside, and they did a quick fix and sealed it up without doing anything about the water. We had some warm days, warm weeks. What happens to water and it gets warm? It created mold all over the equipment, all over the jerseys. Not to mention, the other side of the equipment shed is the snack shack. The snack shack has not been operational for the last 3 years because of, one, we were getting the turf field put in. That's 1 year. Last year, because we weren't allowed to use it because we did not have running water, we did not have a hood for any sort of ventilation for having any food in there. So we, as a football program, could be used for a soccer program, could be used for the lacrosse program, any of the recreational activities that the school hosts, the town hosts, could not be used, could not bring in any revenue. I'm here to try to understand the 80-20 rule, or not even a rule, 80-20 split. If we put it up to vote, and please pardon me, is that going to help the town with, I know that we took maintenance out, the word maintenance out, but is that going to help with the maintenance of the brand new turf field that has weeds growing up the side of the poles? Is someone gonna weed whack that? Because when towns come in and they play on those fields, it's a beautiful field, but they see the maintenance of it, it's not done well. And I think we fell short when we put this beautiful field in, that we didn't think about, is there a phase 1, is there a phase 2, is there a phase 3? Because what about a walking trail all around that property? You could do a lot of landscaping around there, and it'd be a nice walking trail. It could be kids on small bicycles. Nice little trail to walk through that entire, those 2 backfields, the lower polo grounds, the upper polo grounds. But we just slapped down a turf field, and we didn't do anything else. We need to have better understanding of the 80-20 and think about maintenance. I keep on using the word maintenance, but taking care of what we already have or providing walking trails. I've been a resident of this community for 20 years now. The community pool, we stopped going 3 years ago. It doesn't offer anything for my older kids. My kids that are up and grown. They're not allowed to play any sort of ball inside the fence. They have the nice basketball court's right outside, but can't play anything inside the fence. There's no slides, limited on the diving boards. The snack shack is run by a third party. I think as a community, by betterment of the community, of what we already have, it's going to bring people into this community. Our houses are going to increase in value because people want to come into this community. People love Bernardsville, but when they come in here and they see the storefronts, they're closed. There's a lot of stuff going on. The fields aren't taken care of where they should be. I think a lot of people take a lot of time to volunteer, and as a council, you could help us, you could help this town immensely by this 80-20. I hope you get an opportunity we can put it on the ballot in November and make this community a lot better.
Thank you. Okay, just to clarify, the 80-20 is strictly improvements and enhancements. It's not maintenance, like in terms of weed whacking. And that should be done as part of our regular budget. That should be included in the regular budget. And so that's something, we can look at internally as to, keeping up with that better. Things like...
I'm sorry, would that help with the maintenance of that building up there that we use for equipment?
Well, actually, yes, and what we'd like to do, if we had more funding, would be to improve that building, would to put on a roof that isn't going to blow off until maybe something like Sandy comes along again.
Right. Those are one-offs, right?
Right, but that's what the 80%, and again, it's an either or, I think, as somebody pointed out. So 1 year we may use all of it, 1 year we may not use any of it. It will be as on a priority basis, what the community wants, what the council thinks is either a safety issue or, needs to get done right away, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just so I understand further, because the snack shack has come up multiple times, would that come out of this 80-20, or is that capital, would that come out of a separate fund?
No, it could, that would be improvement. We would be improving that building. Actually, the insurance is covering the roof right now because we filed a claim for that. Unfortunately, it doesn't cover your equipment.
There's I don't know if you all, I don't know who wrote it up. There's a letter written up by an attorney saying that we're allowed to use that storage facility for our equipment, but they're not liable for any of the equipment if any damage happens. So we are out a lot of money as an organization that we have to do a ton of fundraising. So Snack Shack would be great. So we could raise some money, revenue coming in. We don't have a way to make any money right now. So, other than sponsors, and we can put sponsor signs on the fences, but that's it.
And just to clarify a couple of the points that you made,
Yes.
You asked about a walking trail, was that considered? So there were a number of meetings talking about turf field before it was ultimately approved
Yep.
by a prior council. I don't believe anybody sitting on the council here was part of the original approval. The one person, Chris Schmidt, I think was on at the time.
Okay.
The walking trail was actually proposed by Christine Zamara, who was a member of the public at the time, at the April 10th meeting of 2017. And the council at the time indicated that they would consider that as a future opportunity, but they
So
couldn't
there's
afford
stages.
it. They couldn't afford it in what they had. Also, in terms of what was included, Jeff DeLeo at the time in a July 12th, 2017 meeting, or sorry, June 12th, 2017 meeting, explained, because there was a lot of discussion about couldn't we do more, couldn't they get other things done, couldn't we have lights, snack shack, all these other things, that they did as much as they could with the budget that they had available to them, which was $700,000 from the county and about 300, a little bit more than 300,000 from the borough at the time, and that's what they could afford. So they did the best they could. This was the explanation given by the prior council. I'm just repeating what was in the
No,
meeting
thank you for
notes,
that explanation.
was that they did what they could with the money that they had.
Okay. With the 80-20.
No, there's nothing to do with 80/20. This was this is a previous.
Yep. I guess
the
what I'm
original
asking,
project.
if the 80-20 was put on the ballot and it did pass, would that help out putting walking trails in?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. With
Okay.
anything that's open space.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I'll be very brief.
Okay.
I think it's important to note, making a decision now does not preclude any decisions in the future. I know a lot of this money, and the reason why a lot of the money was saved was hopefully to purchase the property next door someday, and maybe make a Natter-like park, which I think would be a great thing for our town. If those opportunities presented again in the future, we could make different decisions. We could send a different referendum. But those things aren't in front of us now. The things that are in front of us are things that I think, like Greg said, that are obvious, that we can use those funds for now. So just remember, a vote today doesn't mean, or a vote in November, that it's forever. Things can change.
Thank you. Just one thing to say, this is not a new tax, this is a current tax that people are already paying. What we're looking at is changing the way we spend the tax. It's not increasing your taxes, just so everybody knows that. Yes?
Hi, so Kim McCready, 20 Page Hill Road. So I wanted to say that, from council's perspective, this 80-20 would allow the flexibility for where the money is spent from the open space fund to be determined by you. And allow the town to have opportunity for input and come here at these public meetings and give in their input to say where they want this money spent. It's just providing the whole town, borough, flexibility for where we spend our money. If we don't invest in our town, nobody else is going to want to come here and invest in it either, which means buying houses, opening up properties in town, etc. We have to invest first. So hopefully that can help.
Thanks. Yes?
Hi, I'm Christy McDonald, 59 Anderson Hill Road. I'm here speaking as a private citizen, not on behalf of the Environmental Commission. But my understanding is that the sports are really important in town, and this is something we want. And Ed, who's a wonderful coach, I know him very well. All the things he said are very important. But in the past, didn't we find funding for some of these large projects from other places? We're acting as if the open space fund is the only place to obtain those funds. And I right now, maybe not participating in all of the sports, but I would be willing to pay a few extra dollars in taxes to pay for the upgrade to the snack shack, because I think it is important. But other things are important as well, like open space that just maintains the rural character of our community, such as 496 Brook Road, which was a beautiful property. We walked the property, Carrie Hazelton and I, and Peter Birnbaum took a walk on the property as members of the Environmental Commission. We had ideas in our, of active recreation there, potentially a dog park, potentially using the area for a park, like a playground area. And it also is right on the Mine Brook, which is the main river that goes through town, so it would have preserved the riparian corridor along the river. So I just want to say, though, that I do support the sports in town and would not, and I think there's other ways to fund it besides switching the open space fund over to, especially, to flip it that much to being 80% for upgrades and 20% for open space acquisition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have a 2% cap on our budget, by the way.
Just to clarify, my math's a little hazy, but roughly $500,000 a year goes to the open space fund. So it's about 7 million today. So that's about 14 years worth of funds that are being accrued, right? So totally agree. Absolutely, where there's a need to use it, we need to use it for those things, but where there's opportunity staring in the face, and to have those dollars sitting there for hopefully not another rainy day, but there's a more efficient way to use it. So.
Thank you. I got another one coming. Wait. One at a time.
James Harnett, Anderson Hill Road. I just, listening to everyone about this open space, I just have the question of, I understand we want to buy properties and just preserve properties, but there's a lot of talk about buying properties and then developing it. So the 80-20 way it is now, it kind of ties our hands. If the Peters tract, you want to do active recreation in it. The 496 that was just mentioned, you wanted to turn that to active recreation. Right now, you can only acquire it, you can't develop it. You don't have the funds to develop it. So it's not just about the sports facilities. It's about all the open space you can develop after you purchase it. And I'm also here to represent all the kids. I represent football, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, swimming. We've been members of the pool for 15 years. That place there's not a dime has been put into that place. My kids have swam there for 10 years. We need improvement everywhere. You can't let these properties deteriorate. For the kids.
Thank you. We are doing one project at the pool. Doug,
The picnic.
right? The picnic area, yeah, we're going to be doing that with some operating funds, so something. Yes?
Hi, I'm Johanna Wissinger. I'm on Washington Corner Road. I'm speaking as a resident. And I appreciate all of the people who devote their time to sports. I can appreciate their objectives, but I would like to just underscore, because I was around for when that referendum originally came out and all the debate that was about it. People who voted for that 2080 were thinking of open space for all kinds of reasons, but that 80% was for open space, which means trees, preserving water, and they voted for it to be taxed for it, which was really remarkable that happened. We have to remember the original reason why they voted, and we have to remember that it was the body at large, the community at large. We have a heavy representative here, and we will continue to have that. So we have to remember the original purpose of voting for it, and that the proportion was established, and it was established at a compromise and for a reason.
Thank you. Actually, the first referendum was all acquisition.
Yes.
Then it was amended to have some portion of it for
That's right.
development.
Influenced by the state, which has a lot of urban areas and needed recreation proportion,
And-
not necessarily
Right.
Bernardsville at the time. However, I would like these problems addressed, but in another way.
Could find the money. Yes.
How you doing? Ray Lorenzo, 54 Ambar Place. I've been in the town for, my family's almost in the house for 40, 50 years now. I just want to say this. I'm part of almost every organization in this room for 3 generations of sons. I just want to say something simple. I would love to coach my grandkids in Bernardsville. I would like to keep tradition alive. It's important to me. This tradition that we have with Bernardsville, being a small town, and preserving it, so I understand the open space, and I understand what everybody's fighting for individually. My only thing to say is that I would love to see my family stay here another 30, 40 years, and have the opportunities that my kids had, the beauty of the town. So I don't want people to lose sight of what we're all doing here. It's not about just fields, it's preserving Bernardsville as a whole. So if we go at this together, I think it would be a different era that we can go into without, everybody bumping heads and saying, well, this was made for this and this was made for that. It's right now preserving what we have. There's other towns around us that are huge that we can't compete with. Baskin Ridge, Warren, I see the tournaments I go to. We pay a lot of money in tournaments, baseball. We pay a lot of money in football. To go around in other towns and see their facilities, and you know, we host at here, and we are in the 80s. There's not a lot of, I can't host a football tournament here. I can't host a baseball tournament here that much because we don't have lights. But those are other issues. My main thing of speaking here is if we don't come together as a community now, after the last 20 years of money sitting somewhere, or there's other ways of making money. I understand that, of getting money, pulling here, pulling there, but if we don't act now, the programs won't exist. You know, we're scratching and, you know, crawling just to raise money to pay for fields at this point. We never had this problem. You know, there's not enough donations in the town now. We lost all the old money, and I was there for it. You know, people just gave checks. People did it from their heart because they could. There's a lot of young families in Bernardsville now. I understand. I've seen the change. I've been around for the referendum you're talking about and all the decisions that were made. I was around for all of it. It was a beautiful thing. It's now that I'm talking about. So thank you for your time. And please think, you know, take that into consideration, that's why there's a lot of support in this room. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
Hi, I'm Carrie Hazelton, 397 Minebrook Road. And I find it really troubling to hear about this roof that has come off the equipment shed and that there's been mold. And to me, that's something that, you know, we're looking at a referendum. We shouldn't have gotten to this point. We've let a roof blow off of something that we had. So prior councils have let something get to a point that should have been taken care of through maintenance. That's not a capital improvement. That's taking care of what you've got. So, you know, that needs to be addressed right away. But I do also feel like we should have priorities going forward. And they shouldn't, and we need to have input from lots of different areas to know what our priorities would be. One thing is just having land for the sake of having land, which the prior speaker said. You know, that's important because we can't lose the fact of why we all live here and what drew us here in the first place. I don't think the lack of a dog park is keeping anybody from moving here. I think sometimes we should be thinking about regional opportunities because you don't have to go very far to find a dog park. Maybe we could find a proper place to build the dog park, but we've got hills and, you know, Bernardsville Mountain that other towns around here don't have. They've got a lot more flat land. So we have limitations that they don't have. I just feel like we've got a lot of support in the room for a lot of different priorities, but we know what their priorities are, but we need to get other stakeholders in to talk about what their priorities are, including our older generation, people that have already raised their families and paid their taxes, and see what they would like to have. And I think that's important too. And they may not be able to make it to a meeting, may not be able to drum up the kind of support that we're seeing in the room today. So it's a big decision, and there's a lot of different ways to get money, but keeping the essence of Bernardsville is also really important. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Oh, Ed, you coming up?
Maybe. I see you have an agenda, and I don't want to preempt that by speaking now because.
No, I think you have the statement from the open space committee.
Yeah, there's a statement.
Yes, no, you can do that now. No, do it now.
Do it now?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, because we had the environmental committee statement, so.
Okay, so the open space, I'm presenting this to the open space people. The Open Space Committee met on May 7th and they discussed the proposed changes to the trust fund. They felt they were opposed overall, unanimously. And it was because the costs of the projects weren't specific enough. They weren't sure how the cost would be, the cost would be looked at in the future, who decides which project gets priority, and is the referendum really an imperative? If it is, it should sunset after 4 years, because the Open Space Committee is not going to stand in the way of the council, but at the same time, they felt they should make their voices heard. I don't think Peter's Tract is part of that, or is it now? Peter's Tract is part of that as well? Okay, so Peters Track, we're making progress with the one parcel that was purchased, and we would like the various committees to walk the property. The good news is that we closed on that this week, and so the neighbors are going to be invited. We have a survey for their to look at their concerns, and we want the survey also for all residents to come forward with their concerns. So that's a property that's moving forward, and that should set a pattern for open space in the future, whether or not you go forward with the referendum or not.
Thank you, Ed. Do you have that written down? Oh, question for Ed.
So where does the money come from to develop Peters Track?
Well, the money, it depends on what's being done. Right now, it's only going to be trails that we would build ourselves.
Okay, so any other,
Well, yeah.
any equipment, anything that needed to be done, fences, anything like that, where does that money come from?
We'd have to decide, because it hasn't been decided what fences and what trails and so forth will be done. How the house could be repurposed for an
But
education center.
it comes from that 20%.
Yes.
Which comes from, which has to, that 20% is allocated for all our space. So every time we're buying property, that 20% is diluted. So this gives us the ability to be able to have more opportunity to develop some of these properties, but also the money.
There's a point of order. There's some facts here that are not, you know the facts, maybe you could sort of intercede and tell people how things are paid for from a town government. It's not just a one dedicated fund, you appropriate money and do things. I mean, maybe you should set
What, from the open space
how things are paid
account?
for. Huh?
From the open space account?
No, I mean, if you pay for it from the council to make decisions that thing.
Yes, but the council has a
Yeah,
2% cap on their budget every year. So we get a capital request for $2 million, and I think we ended up with, what, 200,000 in the budget?
I don't believe that cap applies to long-term funding, Mayor.
In terms
we
of
don't
what
wanna
money's
increase debt.
available, there's money available in the 20% in open space, which could be dedicated to the development of open space based on the referendum that passed in 2008.
Right.
Additionally, there's capital spending, this operating budget that we do each year. And each year we try and maintain the taxes as low as possible within the scope of what's possible in the borough. There's road improvements, there's improvements to open space, which could come from monies outside of the open space fund as well. So I think that answers the question that, Steve, you were asking. The 20% from the open space could pay for open space development, as well as part of our operating budget could pay for it. But to the extent, it's roads, it's for everything we do. So but as we increase that, if we ever increase it, that has the potential to increase your taxes at the same time.
Okay. We're good. Thank you. Yeah. And actually, what we're saying is that 20% is somewhere around $90,000 a year. That's what we're using of the open space money to do various projects that need to get done. So, yes.
Hi, Council. Brian Glenn, I live at 10 Laurel Lane, at Joe's old house, right there. I just want to sum up a couple things. So the reason we can't charge money for extra registration, I know it was proposed at a few extra bucks. People would be willing to pay, but we're already getting hit with turf usage fees, or about to get hit with turf usage fees across all sports. Baseball, lacrosse, football. So families are going to see that. That's number one. Number two was brought up that the original 80-20, when that was voted in, that's what those people wanted. I'm going to ask what year that was voted in?
2008, I think. Yeah.
So that was 10 years ago. And the average age of home ownership is 10 years. So probably 10% of those people have moved probably to Florida, right? So not everybody, and that's the whole point of voting, is we can change this. And Chad and Greg articulated it very well. And everybody else, a lot of people have, in terms of just providing flexibility. The third thing is regarding Ed's Snack Shack shed for football. It's absolutely a capital improvement. So if you read about a company that reports under generally accepted accounting principles, when they renovate a plant, that's an improvement. That's a capital improvement. That's not an expense or a maintenance expenditure. And the last thing, so the money that's in there, that's $6.7 million That's almost $1,000 per person in this town that's sitting there. Now, my understanding is we're not gonna raid that fund, right? That stays put. But I think a lot of homeowners wouldn't be too excited about the fact that we're sitting on $1,000 a head, just sitting there doing nothing.
Well,
We can leave that aside, right?
Yeah.
We can leave that aside. But going forward, maybe the right move for now is to visit this idea. And I think that's what people are asking for, is just to put the vote out there.
Brian, just the
Yeah.
7 million almost that's sitting there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, is that after or before we paid for 251?
It was over 7 million.
Okay. And there are, I know the Open Space Committee, I think, has 3 other properties they're looking at.
Okay.
So, you know, I think that balance is a healthy balance, and
Yeah.
I think as someone else mentioned, should Rushman's Farms ever come up, you know, so I think that's not
Understood.
an unreasonable amount of money, but.
Yeah. No, understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you for that.
Although we do get reimbursed from open space. If we purchase a property, let's say that's assessed at $1 million, we would get from the open space fund $500,000. If it's
The county-
appraised,
the
if
county
it's
open
appraised, the
space.
county open space fund.
So we would only actually have to take half of that amount out of
Right.
our open space, because the county would pay the other half on eligible properties that we go through the correct process with.
But it's, you know, we only get so much per year, so even though if we bought 3 properties in 1 year, it would take us 3 years to collect that money back, so we would have to put it up front and then wait to get reimbursed. So it's kind of a fluid investment. You coming up again?
All right, just look, I watched the last election cycle, and I know, Christine and Tom, you guys ran on the fact that you wanted to make improvements to this town. And many of us in this room supported that. The unfortunate reality is those monies aren't there in a readily available way. This allows you to do that. This allows you to have funds to make the improvements that you want to make, in consultation with the environmental committee and everyone else. Unfortunately, I watched just a few weeks ago, you guys discussed the budget and how, I think you used the word, Tom, a fine-tooth comb, that you use to go through every line in that budget to find money to only increase taxes by this much. That does not speak to a town that is flush with cash and flush with dollars to improve the things that you ran on, know that need to be improved in this town.
And we have debt,
And we have that.
so we're working on that. Peter?
Peter Birnbaum, 144-2 Round Top Road. The recreation issue is very common around the state. Town I lived in 15 years ago had the same issue with a shortage of fields, although they had combined with another town by then. It was Chatham, which is Chatham Township, Chatham Borough, where they had shared fields because they're very close to each other and they shared a recreation department to do that. So they had a lot of fields, but they still had the same kinds of issues. And the way that they helped solve their problem was they did some turf fields, of course, because you could get more playtime. And they also had a habit of maintaining the fields pretty well by resting a third of the fields for 6 months to a year, every year on a cycle. So that means someone won't play because they're grass, and grass doesn't grow really well without being taken care of. So, the turfing helped a lot. I know some people are against turf, but on the other hand, it does provide certain advantages for the ones that are willing to play there. But there's also, the way it's paid for was the way traditional playing is done in any company. And usually in the municipal government, where you're not using funds that were tax that was approved by the voters for a specific purpose, and which is basically like a sinking fund, where you're putting building up money, like you're going to buy a house, you build up a down payment in the days before you had the 3% or no down payment. You had something you put down, and then you got your financing against that. That's how typically the financing is done, and it still can be done, because long-term financing, capital improvements are done outside of the cap. Now, the maintenance and taking care of all those things is in the cap, because that is an operating budget item. And you need a budget for that. The town hasn't historically budgeted a lot of money for taking care of stuff, but I think there's been some changes made over the last few years. So the open space fund isn't the only way of doing the money. If you do want to use the open space fund, you're in effect creating a recreation fields or maintenance tax, because that's really what it is. And I don't like paying taxes, I'm kind of a fiscal conservative. I do like the old way where you say, okay, I'd rather pay taxes like Christie did. I would be happy to pay more taxes. I don't have kids in school, I vote for the school, pleasure. May not like some of the items, but I vote for it because I think it's important to me. So we could do all this stuff the old-fashioned way and have our dedicated reserve funds for the things that will prevent us from having overcrowded roads, major expansion on our schools by population growth, by further development, and preserve the beautiful quality of our community, which is why many of us move here. So this isn't the only way to raise money. You have to convince this council that we need to do some major capital improvements and to go for it, because you can. And I just did rough calculations. You know, you're not talking about taking the food off the table for most people. I think in this room, I don't want to speak for most people, everybody, because I know there are always exceptions. It's not a huge amount of money, and it's the right way to do it instead of trying to move things around, which the state has what I think of, anybody know junk bond rated New Jersey these days for our bond rating? Because we keep on rating one pot of money for using another purpose and never bringing money back. We're triple A rated. I hate to see that change. So we just have to do it the right way and convince us, everybody, that you want to do these major capital improvements and go to the market, raise it the old-fashioned way, and do it in a more fiscally deliberate and conservative way to do it. It also helps make everybody think things through, so you're not chasing a pot of money, but you come forward with plans and make sure the plans are everybody useful plans. So I'm absolutely for all this stuff. I've seen it. I've seen our own citizens now. We need fields. You guys have kids. You have a lot of interests that are very important to all of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else? Oh, Jackie. Kathleen, here you go.
Hi, Kathleen Williams in Round Top Road. I'd like to request that the council and or public safety committee, I'm not exactly sure who would make the determination, request that Chief Valentine do a speed limit or safety assessment on Round Top Road. Round Top is rated at 35 miles an hour. It is a dead end with a cul-de-sac, and Lakeview off of it is also a dead end with a cul-de-sac. You come up Mine Mount Road at 25 miles an hour and turn left onto Round Top. You can fly down at 35. A week ago, I saw a mother with her 2 children coming up the hill, probably around 50 Round Top, where it drops down, and was on the wrong side of the road, and the car came flying. It was nervous. I was so nervous that she was going to get hit. A lot of people use that area, since it is a closed residential area, to bike, to run, to jog. There's a lot of pedestrians and families in that area, so I ask that you have that review from a public safety perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent you an email that we communicated,
Yes.
and I thought the chief might be here tonight, but I'll relay that message.
He's here on the second meeting of the month, right? Yeah. So, yeah, well, whoever's public safety, are you meeting soon?
That's
sometime?
me and
Usually Chris calls them, but we'll.
Oh, the 3 of you? Okay.
Well, we got the routine of doing it right before the second meeting of the month.
Okay. So that's the day after Labor Day, so yeah, we'll get him. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd just like to second that. The road had been 30 miles an hour until it was repaved and widened. So,
Oh, it was 30 and now it's
What is it?
35?
It's 35 now.
But it was 30
I'd
and
like it to be considered to be
25.
just like the first half.
Which is
of
what
Mine
Mine Mount is, right?
Yeah. Well, Mine Mount, on the lower half of Mine Mount, once you hit the golf course, it does increase to 35, which, I don't live on that road, I know that, and there's no sidewalks also on Round Top, so it's dangerous from a pedestrian perspective.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? We good?
I want to comment on what he said. 15 years ago, I just want to comment about what he said on the opening statement about Chester Mendham combining.
Actually, it was Chatham Township and Chatham Borough.
Okay. They didn't have enough kids to support separate leagues. They had to combine so that they didn't completely crush their program.
Right.
They had triple the amount of space of fields that we can ever have here in Bernardsville. So you can't compare that to here.
Yeah.
We don't have the space that other towns have. That's the only thing I want to say.
Right.
That's You know, I was around for that. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like, you know, I know why they did that, and it was funding. The fields were always maintained, they had enough money for them, they just didn't have the kids to put them on.
Okay. Anyone else? Last chance. Going? Okay, I move that we'll close the public session. Thank you all. That was your last chance to speak, so we'll move on with the agenda for ordinances. Well, it's not your last chance to speak because I'm going to open the public hearing on ordinance 2019-1802, which is an ordinance adding 4-hour free parking at the Mount Airy parking lot and supplementing and amending Chapter 8 of the Borough Code entitled Parking Lots and Off-Street Parking. So this is just on the we call it the Ammerman lot. As you go over the bridge, there's that parking lot on the left. We've added shopper parking there, added some more shopper parking, and extended it to 4 hours so that we help the downtown with parking.
We didn't just add shopper parking, the entire lot is available for shopper parking now.
Right, and then we also are, I think this is also, well, not this particular ordinance, but we're also making it easier for employees to get a sticker for $10 to be able to park there at the train station so that we're not burdening the people that have businesses right on the circle with trying to find parking for their employees. Anybody want to be heard on this ordinance?
Can I speak to the other parking lot? The train station?
Not really.
I would just suggest that someone take a look at that pavement, because once the winter comes, there's already a crack going all the way down the center of that.
It's a cold joint.
Really?
It needs to be
It
filled.
needs to be filled in, because that, once the freeze and thaw cycle starts, that's gonna destroy that beautifully paved parking lot. That needs to be filled in, it's completely all the way down the center of that parking lot.
Is that, Doug, did you? Train station. Okay, can we take a look at that?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you. Anyone want to be heard on this? If not, then I will close the public hearing. So now I need a motion.
You're looking for a motion to pass, so I'll
Yes.
move that we accept the ordinance to 2019-1802, an ordinance adding 4-hour free parking at the Mount Airy parking lot and supplementing and amending Chapter 8 of the Borough Code entitled Parking Lots and Off-Street Parking.
Second?
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Ms. Burdette?
Yes.
Mrs. Mara?
Yes.
Okay, next, you want to do that as finance chair?
I move that ordinance 2019-1803 appropriating $90,000 from the capital improvement fund for various equipment as listed in the 2019 municipal budget be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting at 7 p.m. Tuesday, May 28th, 2019.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay. And this is largely, this $90,000 is budgeted for police equipment that they've requested. Okay, and now we have resolutions 19-103 through 19-109. Does anyone want to pull any of those from the consent list?
No?
We're all good? Okay, would somebody like to move them? Move.
I'll second.
Okay, so we're moving 19-103 through 19-109. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Mara?
Yes.
Mr. Burdette?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Annie. Okay, we have some wording from,
Oh, yeah, I didn't know if you passed along the picture. I typed in anything on it.
I think we
It's
have
pretty
a
much
picture.
the same as our road.
Anybody have comments on what's
Yeah,
proposed?
it looks good to me.
Yeah? You all good with that? And Doug, you have a spot for it, right? We have that all worked out for the plaque. This is the plaque for
No,
Lou
we're gonna do a
Ferranti.
boulder.
You are?
Yeah.
Decided on the boulder?
Yeah, and the one I think that we picked out meets the regulation, it was like 2 by 3, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So the boulder though is 2 by 2, so we should be fine. I think that, my brother-in-law, Steve, has spoken to you maybe about like at the end of the, where the bleachers are,
Yes,
right?
yeah. We have to do some drainage work in there.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, very, very bad.
Yeah, no, I can see it, I'm going across.
Yeah. But thank you for all your work on that. I'm glad it's finally getting done, and let us know when it's ready to go, and we'll have a ceremony or something. Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's a plaque for Lou Ferranti, who was very active in Little League way back, helped create it and build it up. So the one field at Polo is going to be...
No, it's not Polo, it's the middle school field.
The middle school field,
even more
yeah.
appropriate.
I
It's
call
out
all
there
that
for
the
3
Polo
years.
grounds.
As long as it.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank
6D,
you, guys.
we were going to talk about painting the Mount Airy Bridge. We've gotten, those of you who don't know, as you come into Bernardsville from Basking Ridge on Mount Airy and you go over the railroad tracks, there's cement walls. I think it started back with Christine, how many years ago, talked about it, and lately I've been hearing more, and I think since we had graffiti on it, everyone's been talking about, can we do something with that? It's really ugly. So, and Jeff had come up with some ideas, and so had Tom, so what we're looking at is some kind of a community-type effort to get murals painted on there. So, anyway, I had talked to Karen Frost Olmsted. I don't know if anybody knows Karen Frost. She's a graduate of Bernards High School. And she does murals. We talked about having some artists give proposals, have maybe a community meeting for people to give input. So you'll probably be hearing more about that and anything the council wants to share about the process. But I think that's the goal, is to get those walls painted. Actually, we can't talk now.
No comment?
No comment, sorry.
I'm just
Can I
wondering,
say the word Mr. Mack?
Mr. Mack,
He's the, I actually
Is he
suggest
school?
he's the middle school art teacher,
He's a wonderful man.
Bedwell.
Mr. Bedwell,
Yeah.
McCarron.
So, if anybody, I guess this goes back 3 years,
is it really?
kind of, where, that's always been an easy but not so easy thing to do. It seems like it should be easy, right? Because it's a no-brainer, but apparently the property ownership is not cut and dry as us. So through a lot of investigating and determining that it can in fact be done, if any of you have been to School of St. Elizabeth cafeteria within the past couple of years, so she's the artist that coordinated that.
Karen Frost did that.
So that was the first person that came to my mind, although I know that mural art is a very up-and-coming thing, and many towns are using it for, economic revitalization. It's a
Jersey
great.
City just did a whole
Oh my
big-
God, there's so many nice ones, and they, automatically encourage people who may not want to walk over that bridge because it seems so dangerous. Now it automatically becomes more walkable and more pedestrian friendly than it is now. So, if any of you participated in the mural painting that Karen conducted, she amazingly took the, I'm not an artist, but I was able to volunteer, and she said, here's your color, you paint this, all of these flowers you paint, and I did a total botch job, and then somehow she came at the end and made it look amazing. Like, she touches it up at the end, but she uses everyone's input, and everyone feels like they contributed, and it was just a very great community project. So, the cafeteria at Taney's is bigger than this, and she covered the whole thing. If you haven't seen it, you should, and it's a perfect example of how, again, investing in our community. This isn't a very costly project, but it definitely will require input and should, have the input of everyone, so.
Well, part of what we talked about was maybe having a town meeting where everyone can share, gee, I'd love to see it look like this, or maybe pictures of this, or what should we include, so that it really is a community thing, and then everyone gets to paint a piece of it, and maybe we can get some sponsors. There's a lot of different ways we can do it. The main thing, though, right now is dealing with DOT, because it's theirs. And there's some trees that need to be cut back, and, you know, when Karen looked at it, there's a lot of prep work on the cement that has to get done. So it's not gonna happen tomorrow, but we're discussing it and collecting ideas, so if people have input or talents that you'd like to share, or know someone, or have, you know, people in mind, even if we got a whole group of artists together to talk about it, that might be something to do.
I think this is a great idea. It's obviously been talked about for years, and if we can move the needle on it, that's great. I don't know, Doug, did we have contact recently with NJ Transit saying that we could go forward with this?
NJ Transit, yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, that's good. It sounds like that's not what we always get, that kind of response from them. I think in the past when we've asked, it's been nebulous what we're allowed to do. But maybe we can assign somebody on the council who wants to volunteer to sort of lead the process of community engagement, or whatever it is we want to do, or mayor?
Since Christine started it, would you like to follow through?
You've been volunteering, Christine.
Of course.
I'll help
I mean,
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You be my daytime help.
There you go.
Can I just give a little bit of applause to Doug? I mean,
Yes.
When we first, my understanding is when we first approached the DOT, their response was, well, you could repaint it and you have a choice of either gray or gray. And through persistence, if nothing else, we were able to get them to, to come around to allowing us to do this. So I think we need to give it a little credit there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
That's true, yeah. Okay, so hopefully you'll be hearing more about that, and any ideas you have, we'd love to hear. The next is Friends for a Greener Bernardsville. We did have a sample letter from Ann Peterson, the president. If those of you remember, she came before us. They're having a financial crisis, and again, I think this kind of goes back to what Greg was saying here about, they had a lot of people who gave money every year that have either moved out of town or are not doing it anymore. And they're the group that does the hanging baskets that you see downtown. They also maintain that hillside of where the high parking is across from the fire company there. I think they do the train station as well. So that's all done by them. And now they are running out of money and running out of people, because a lot of their committee has aged out or been sick or moved out of town. So they've gone, I think, from 12 members to 5 members. Their donations are down. They are going to send out one more letter here, which we had a sample of, to residents, looking for a president and a treasurer and 3 new board members, and also for any donations. If they're not successful in this attempt, this will be the last year that you see those hanging baskets and that these things are maintained. So they did find they had a crisis where they actually own the watering tank, if you see the person that goes around and waters the baskets, but the person that was watering them didn't have his truck anymore, but they were able to find somebody to water this year, so they do have somebody watering. But that's expensive, and buying the baskets is expensive. So anyone who is interested in helping them, would like to get involved in that, I hope you'll respond to their letter, or recommend somebody, because they do wonderful. I mean, it's beautiful. They really make the town look so pretty, and I'd hate to see them go away. And it would be hard for us, I think, as the council, to roll all that into our budget by next year. So we'd love to see it be done by volunteers who really care. So anyone comment?
It'd be great if we can keep it going.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are looking for donations. The sports teams are talking about stuff, the library,
everybody,
the fire department, everybody needs support, so.
Yeah. Speaking of the fire department, since Glenn's here, I just want to publicly thank you and your wonderful volunteers for a great job in saving that, the house on Post Road. They really did it. I don't know if you heard all the sirens on Saturday, but, you know, I think it was only 3 rooms, you said, that you had damage.
There was damage to 3 or 4 rooms.
Yeah, so thank you. Good job. Feel free to volunteer or write a check to the fire company. We'll plug in there. The next is 6F, summer hours. We had a memo from Ralph for the staff. I don't know how you keep track of all this, but if that's what you've always done and it works well, does anyone have a problem with that? I like the way you did the team so that there's always somebody represented. And if somebody walks in from the community, there'll always be somebody here in a particular department. So I think that's a nice trade-off.
And we open earlier in the summer.
Yeah.
So it actually ends up being extended hours.
It's actually 7:30 to 5, yeah. Do you need us to do anything, or you just,
Approve?
we're good?
Approve
We
my
just
motion.
approve it?
Yeah.
Just approve it, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, Andy. Good night. Okay, next is the planning board recommendation about attached accessory dwelling units. We have a memo from them. Anyone want to comment on it? I thought it was not about the attached ones. It was detached, it's actually detached, not attached. Right, yeah.
Don't they require a lease if someone has a detached rental on their property? If they were requiring a lease, then that Airbnb threat or whatever would really be non-existent.
Well, that's what they say, the current ordinance has limitations to prohibit that, the Airbnb type things, but I think our concern with the detached was that you're not allowed to charge rent.
That's right.
That was what our concern was.
I know they mentioned the Airbnb in there, that being a
But-
reason, which I didn't understand why that would be a reason.
Because then if we allow them to rent it, then they could become an Airbnb, I
Well, what if you
suppose.
say they can't do that? Then that's, I mean, that.
You could word it that way,
If
yes.
we were the ordinance to prohibit that, then that would be not an issue. So if that was a concern, then that would no longer be there.
And we're allowed to do that, we could say that we
Yes, a lot of
prohibit
towns have
Airbnb usage.
Airbnbs.
Yeah.
We can just
I think,
prohibit short-term rentals.
Yeah, and just for you people that are staying, thank you, but this is an ordinance, we had an ordinance that says if you have a detached building on your property, you can't charge rent for it. It's supposed to be rent-free for a family member, your housekeeper, your gardener, whatever, which we know a lot of people do rent theirs, or you have to get a variance if you
Right,
want it to
you
be
can
a
if you
rental.
get
You
the
can
variance.
if you get the variance. So we were looking to update that, but I think what they're saying is they don't feel that's necessary.
So, because I'm the representative on the planning board, I'll just explain what I think that the context of the letter was.
Oh, good, thank you.
So, the planning board was requested to look at the existing ordinance and see if it needed to be updated. That was the request that came from this council.
Right.
So the planning board had a meeting, this was one of the items on the agenda. They looked at the existing ordinance, and by a majority of the planning board, they felt that they didn't need to change the language in the existing ordinance, and they wrote a letter to that effect with a lot of words in it. But it basically said, we looked at it, we did what you asked us to do, and we don't recommend any changes. Now, if I understand, Jack, it's up to us to take their recommendation or do what we want with it.
That's right, the ultimate decision is up to you. The only requirement is to override a recommendation of the planning board is that you adopt an ordinance by a majority of the full council, which is 4, which is the same as majority.
Yeah.
Anyway, and pass an ancillary resolution stating the reasons why you're overriding their recommendation, but you certainly have the power to do as you wish.
Okay. So that's the context of the letter.
I know, it's,
So that would just mean that anybody who had one of these would have to get a variance.
Right, so if you wanted to rent it, you would have to get a variance to say you're allowed to rent yours, because the default is you can have it, but you cannot rent it. You can give it to your mother-in-law, you could allow your adult children to live there, you could let your housekeeper live there.
Didn't they say something in that letter about you can rent it to someone who is over retirement age?
You can make
No,
it
it's,
affordable housing, right?
Under the
it says-
current ordinance, you could use it for affordable housing, I think.
But that's
I
for
thought you could,
somebody
I
who is
think, that's right, I think
over
you could use it for seniors.
for senior
You
citizens.
can't disallow senior citizens from renting rooms in their home, whatever that means, to one person.
So basically,
and charging
if
rent.
it's for someone who's over 60, what is it, 62 or 65?
I'm sorry, okay, yes.
62.
So I just reminded myself of what it was. If the owner of the property is 62 or over, they have the right to allow one tenant as a boarder. Under New Jersey state law, you can have a boarder in your home if you're over 62.
And charge for that.
And charge
Yes.
for that. But
So
that's
isn't
a state, that has nothing to do with our ordinances.
That's municipal land use law.
Right. That border, even in your home, if you didn't have an accessory dwelling, you can have a border in your house if you're over 62 by New Jersey state law, which we don't control.
So doesn't that really negate this whole thing that we're having them look into?
Not if you're 59.
Okay, but if you're over, okay, but if you're over 62.
If you're over 62, you got one
Then you
person.
don't have just one person, you can have a family.
That's called a border. So
Yes,
that
okay.
law is
Okay.
meant to be a border.
Well, it says, it says to one person.
To a single person.
Yeah.
So,
That's the one. Yeah.
Because I think this grew out of the housing committee, housing and zoning committee, because it didn't make sense that we could no longer do that. And I know there was a purpose for this ordinance back, decades ago when it was put in place. But if we wanted to allow people to rent their outbuildings without having to go through the trouble of getting, and the cost of getting a variance, how do we do that?
Ordinance. We changed the ordinance, yeah.
But I think, because this came up in the planning board discussion, Jeff, is that the ordinance that was being reviewed was like a 2008 or 2012
It
ordinance.
wasn't that old, yeah.
It wasn't that old.
Okay, I thought it was
Because
old.
what had happened was somebody came and asked for a variance, and so at that time, there was an update to the ordinance, and that's the version that we're looking at now.
What was the rationale? Does anybody know why they would prohibit people from renting their?
So part of the
accessory
discussion was it would be allowing greater density. So if you have a 10-acre property, and I'm just using an example here, the numbers may not be exactly correct. If you have a 10-acre property and you have your main house plus you have the second house on the main property, and you rent that second property as an income property to a family of 4, let's say, that would basically say, well, it's not 10-acre zoning anymore, now you have 2 families living on 10 acres. So that was one of the logics that the planning board used in making their recommendation. Now, whether or not we want to accept that.
I would hardly call that logic.
If they let them live there rent-free, you still are adding 4 people.
But they have to be relative then.
But it's still 4 people. It's still a
You know,
density issue.
I think I've said it before, I can't remember the forum, but I just think we need to get rid of this provision. I think people, if they have accessory buildings, it's already happening. We're prohibiting something which is already widespread. So let's stop the charade.
Well, and I think the concern is if people know they're not supposed to do it and they do it, then they're not being inspected. And, if we have if you own a rental property in town, you need to have it inspected to make sure that it meets all the safety requirements.
As well,
Yeah, it has to meet
inspections
all
aren't
the
there.
safety requirements, and then you may have issues where, there's a fire and nobody knew anybody was living there. So this way, people would be more likely to come forward and report that they have a rental property. So how do we change the ordinance, Jack?
Well, do we want to change the ordinance? I think is the question.
Do we want to?
I do.
Well,
John?
I think we should. I mean, it's just to reflect reality and whatever, it's a way to prevent it from being Airbnbs just down the line, but.
I just remember sitting here for 2 meetings with people that have 2-family homes in other areas of our town who are coming in and saying that, they're being told that after 40 years of it being a 2-family home, they're no longer allowed to have 2 families in their residence. Meanwhile, we're going to say.
Well, difference is, occupancy's been allowed in these. It's just charging rent is what, we're talking
Right.
about. So these occupancy's always been allowed here.
They're allowed to have people live there, they just.
I mean, it's like Jeff says, happening. It's,
The planning board could see a clear difference between allowing your adult children to live in part of your property and renting it to a third party, I guess.
Or the gardener could live there so that they don't have to be a relative. Someone can live there, they just can't charge rent. So all we're doing is saying, well, you could charge rent. I mean, it's just opening them up to have it, as Jeff said, then they get inspected and then they get,
Right.
we know exactly who's on property. And if you can also say you can't use it as an Airbnb, it's gotta have a lease, like at least a year lease or whatever.
Christine, where are you on this? I mean, what do you feel about it? Yes, no, change it?
Did this come up as a result of a complaint of a resident or?
Yeah.
Just one resident? That
Yeah, he got a letter,
didn't
but I
want
think
to
more
get a
people are gonna be
variance.
getting letters, just like the multiple family people, I think. As they, as the housing and zoning officer becomes aware of ones that are being rented.
And so this person.
Got a letter that he
Irene-
was in violation, yeah.
Right, and wants to be able to charge rent without obtaining the variance.
Yeah. I think it may also, it's helpful to the people who have estates and are having trouble selling them. It's a selling point if you have a rental property on your property that may enhance the sales.
Well, not only that, but the trend, it seems like, with kids graduating from college is that they're all coming home to live with mom and dad. Not all, I think it's like
Kids rent.
20%, so.
So if we do move forward with this, I would propose that in parallel, we, make sure that we have a chance for the public. I mean, we did have one
Well, no, you
person.
have to have a first reading in it.
Understood, but what I was gonna say also is that the, also having the planning board come and present to us, so that we have, I sort of relayed what I can remember from the discussion almost a month ago, but, I think it would be helpful to just hear directly from them, and then we can make our final decision.
Yeah, to develop just the concept and see if we're missing something and if we're right on the right track.
Right, or even just what we're gonna put into the ordinance if we're changing the
Correct.
ordinance,
Yeah, you
Actually-
gotta limit the square footage, the number of people, the various things.
Jack, could you just give us kind of a scribbled up version of what we're talking about? Do you understand what it is we're looking to change? Maybe take the
Sure.
existing ordinance
Sure,
and see.
I'll talk to John Zabel.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, and see which sections we would be looking at.
Yeah.
That
I'm
would
also
be great.
curious from your experience, Jack, that is it frequent that the council would not take a recommendation from the planning board?
It happens because you're the elected representatives.
Yeah.
As I say, you have to go through the process, pass a resolution on the side stating your reasons. So you have the ultimate control over what goes into the zoning. So it does happen, it's not common here.
Okay.
And then we have the ability to get a public
Right.
hearing.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've got the
I'll bring it
importance.
to the next work session then, for discussion,
The next work session, yeah.
a month from now.
Yeah.
Bring it to the next meeting if you want.
No, I think a month from now.
Next person, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Will do, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Could we also, Ralph, ask for any information that we have about the quantity of these properties that would be affected by something like this? Like, is that,
Yeah, Jeff Price has that.
exactly, so like, we would have some idea that, but the other thing is that, would it allow people who don't have one of these to start building them?
Yeah.
Well, that's
That-
different.
No, see, I don't think they should be able to build one.
It should be existing.
It should be an existing structure, or we would have no control over it.
Well, they'd have to get
That, because it applies to the land, but because limit the number, the size, that sort of thing. So if somebody has one,
The quantity on a single property or the quantity in our town?
it would be per property.
Per
Per
property.
acres, you could make it.
Yeah. Well, they'd still have to go to the planning board if they're gonna build something, right? Or a board of adjustment.
Not if it's a single, ancillary use to a single family now.
Oh, you mean if they're converting it? If they have a garage and they're gonna convert it into an apartment, don't they need a variance for
Not
that?
if the ordinance permits it, because 1 and 2 family residential uses do not have to go before the board, unless they need a variance, is next ordinance.
Well, if it doesn't have like plumbing and they need to get,
Well, they'd have to go to the building.
right, they'd have to get building
Construction
permits and,
Yeah, they'd
right,
have to get permits if they were gonna convert a building
right,
into something
into
else.
something.
But if
As
someone,
part of that, the construction official has to determine that it's permitted under the
Right.
zoning ordinance.
but if somebody is building a new house, they can't build one on their property.
Build 2 houses.
No.
Well,
Yeah.
that's,
Well, they
if
need
you're
permits.
allowing existing ones, I think you have to allow new ones,
Why?
subject to the same.
Why?
Well, if
Well,
I
again,
if I
it's-
recall
yeah,
correct,
based
if I
on-
recall correctly, the current ordinance was a result of somebody trying to build a new property with an ancillary building.
Right.
Again, the planning board might be able to shed more light on this, because some of those people were present when that original, the current ordinance was written, and they might be able to give the context of what they were doing. But I believe from the discussion, there was a vacant piece of land, and a person was building a brand-new building and wanted to build a second building on the property. And I think that was somehow related to the ordinance that's in place today.
We have to dig in more into that, just to make sure there's no unintended
But
consequences.
that's why I'm saying having somebody from the planning board that has the
Yeah.
history, the knowledge, and
Yeah.
background, maybe.
Well, yeah, we're not
shed some
rushing
light.
this, but just make sure you do the right thing.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But in response to Dan's question, regulations have to be uniform throughout a zoning district.
Right.
So if you allow one on one property,
You
you
have to
can't make it a non-conforming use
for someone
by
else.
ordinance. You have to allow it subject to the same.
So we just have to make sure we don't have unintended consequences.
Right, no, I agree.
In
Yeah.
anything that we do decide to change.
Okay. Carrie, you have a request.
Yes, up with my request. Hi, Carrie Hazelton from the Environmental Commission at this point. I just wanted to talk to council about an idea that we have, or want to request funding for an elm tree for Lou Matlack. You all got in the package the dedication that we wrote. We had a lovely presentation with Shade Tree and Lou and his wife were all there. And the idea was that we were going to get a native flowering tree. But given the fact that he found an elm tree up on Highview, which is, something that I saw him do, and it's probably 100 feet tall, we thought, well, why not an elm? Why don't we look into whether we could get an elm? So we have Peter Birnbaum, who's an expert in all native plants, and he knows about Dutch elm disease, and he's been in touch with all the different growers, and there's several varieties that are proven to be very resistant to Dutch elm. We have a site, which we are proposing up by Veterans. It's the most prominent tree site you could have. I'm hearing that the parents would like to have shade up there. It's going to take a while, but this tree would give it. There are already about 4 flowering trees that would be to the front of it, but just be right at the base of the Veterans Turf Field, and before you drop down to Lower Polo, that's where we would like to put it. We want to put a plaque up. Rosalie Ballantyne got a quote on that for about $300, and the tree is in the neighborhood of $300. It usually costs 2 or 3 times that to plant it. So we thought $750 for the tree and the planting, some of which we might be able to get done through the help of the borough, hopefully, with Public Works, and $300 for the plaque to honor Lou, who just has done so much for trees in this town. And we thought, let's just try to give this elm a go. So I'm up to ask you guys for an elm and a plaque.
All right, thank you. How does this work fit in with our new ordinance with making donation, like the whole commemorating people?
Can't you raise funds?
That
for
was
this?
before
I mean,
me, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I
Remember,
think
we
it has to
went
go with
to-
the appropriate
this is
committee. We
council.
determine the appropriate committee to send it to. Like, anyone just went through it. And I was like, what, rec did you go through? Well, she was still
We
here.
did speak
No.
to Shade Tree. We had back and forth with them, and they had a lot of questions about whether the tree was going to survive, but I think that between their tree expert and ours, I think we got that kind of ironed out. I didn't subject you to the amount of emails that were going back and forth. I thought that would be more information than you really needed. I guess we could fundraise for it, but we thought, I'm not aware of your new ordinance, which,
It's more procedural than like
It was a
fundraising. It's-
process for applying for commemorative plaques and that kind of thing, right? Don't we have an
So it's
application?
the amenity donation, and that would go through Anthony, that you just say a tree, a bench, or other, a picnic table, something, and then a plaque. So, the donor would, provide the funding for it, and then we do the installation, in this case, planting or whatever. But I think it's a case-by-case basis, and the only one we've gotten so far was a resident who, do you know the old Army Trail where the bridge is?
yes.
So we just put our first one, which is a bench there, has a plaque on it.
Right. Well, we were thinking that it would be appropriate to use the tree replacement fund, which you guys are in charge, you guys hold the purse strings, the tree replacement fund. And this is a tree, and the fund is there, and that was what we were seeking, not budgetary issues, but that we thought it was appropriate, since he was in charge of the shade tree for so long, that it would be an appropriate use of shade tree replacement funds from developers and people that didn't put the trees on their property.
And Shade Tree's okay with that? Is that, you've already talked to them?
We didn't know who, that, I guess we really had a question. We ended up with a question, which will bring me to you, because we weren't sure whether, ultimately, I think that council approves when that shade tree money is spent. And so we came to you because I think that the money is there. I'm not sure, we don't know the jurisdiction, whether they make the decision or you do.
So Ralph, do you know how much money we have in the tree replacement fund? And if, planting a tree seems like part of what that fund would do. We just pick this tree versus a different tree, is that right?
That's correct. So we can authorize that as the council, okay.
But maybe not the plaque in that money.
No, not the plaque.
But the tree and planting the tree.
Right.
Okay.
Would we be within our scope to do that tonight? I don't know.
Yes.
So we can do a resolution to,
Just a motion.
Just a motion.
well, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Isn't this opening up a can of worms that anytime anybody wants something planted in their name anywhere in town that we're going to approve or be paying for trees or other things, flower gardens or, whatever? I mean, it's endless. Anytime anybody does anything or volunteers, I mean, the guys here who do all the sports, shouldn't they have plaques somewhere, or shouldn't they have,
Well, no, it's not.
I just think this is a precedent where we just can't keep opening a can of worms to do this.
The tree piece is, that's what the Shade Tree Fund is for, is to plant a tree, so
But then
that's
shouldn't this whole
okay.
thing be going through the Shade Tree Committee and not here to us?
It did.
It has.
It did, but we have to approve the money to come out of that fund. But the fund is just for planting trees, but not the plaque.
Right, so we're using the money for its intended purpose if we approve it to plant a tree.
Right.
If we were approving it to put a bench in, I think that would be not appropriate.
Right, we wouldn't come for shade tree replacement funds for that.
The plaque, I think there was a process put in place by the last council of how you go about
There is.
doing that. It has to be approved. You have to explain why, who the person was, what it's about, and then we would approve that application.
But we're a
Like we did for
standing
Lou,
commission,
yeah.
not a private individual coming forward. We're the environmental commission, and in concert with the Shade Tree Commission.
And we've never had one from a commission before, so.
And we have never made one before.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine us making a specific request for a tree for anyone other than Lou, because of how long he was the chair of the Shade Tree and the amount of things that he did.
Just curious how.
I think it was at least 12 to 15 years.
Wow.
He was the one who did the inventory of all the trees that the borough owns and all the right-of-ways. He had a group of 20 of us, and we went everywhere, every single road, every neighborhood, and cataloged those trees, including the elm, which is why we're asking for that specific species of tree. We just thought it was poetic.
It is very nice to do. So what do we do about, we've never had a commission ask us for a plaque.
I still think the plaque is probably a good idea now to have the borough fund it in light of the ordinance and in light of the precedent.
Okay.
And in light of it, we just look for those plans.
We'll fundraise for that. We'll get.
So I think then, to answer the question of, well, then how do we address other requests that might come out as a result of this, is that we would have to determine on a case-by-case basis if 12 years of service to the borough and planning or servicing the Shade Tree Committee, if 15 years of service is something that we would recognize with the planting of a tree. And
I understand.
Is that something that we would do in the future so that it's not just open season?
It's not the planting of the tree as much as it is the plaque.
Right, which we're not doing.
Right, so.
I don't have a problem with them funding a plaque and putting a plaque somewhere if they want to do that. It's just, I think it's setting a precedent there. There's a lot of people who have done a lot of volunteering for a lot of organizations, whether it be Firehouse, whether it be Coach, whether it be working on the fields with the Little League. there's people who volunteer for a tremendous amount of time. The greener, the
Friends
greener,
for
the
Greener
Friends for
Bernardsville.
Greener, Bernardsville. Everybody is gonna deserve a plaque, everyone's gonna deserve something.
That discussion already happened, that's
the
with
ordinance.
the whole Ferranti plaque.
I know,
Started,
well, I
open that
know.
up, that's already been
That's
resolved.
why we have that application
But there's an
process.
ordinance for getting a plaque, right, Christine? We have an ordinance, they can go through the process to get a plaque and place a plaque. Anybody could get a plaque placed if they follow the ordinance and they pay
If
for
this
the
has already
plaque,
been adjudicated.
right? So that sort of, if we separate that from planning the trade, then we're really just planning a trade, which is the purpose of the money in the first place.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the $750 from the Shade Tree Fund?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I'll abstain.
Okay.
I just, I don't know.
Okay. All right,
Thank
so
you,
we got the
Council.
$750.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we have a request from Ridge High School for a community service event.
I had a hard time figuring out what they were actually asking to do at our school. And the second question, is this a Board of Education issue?
Well, they do a full-day community service event.
But they want to send their
They want their
students to our
students,
school.
yeah.
Well, not to our school, to
No,
our
to the
town.
town.
Oh, I thought
Can we,
it-
can we ask them to pull weeds if there's weeds that need to be?
Can we, yeah, really? Can we tell them what we want them to do?
I think you could, when I read it, it seemed like we make a project and they come for up to
Well,
6
no,
hours to
it
work.
might be a
says,
good gig.
it says complete a project at the high school
That's what I read. It says
for
at the
your
school.
organization.
Well, what's the point of that? That's silly.
That's what the whole point is. I don't understand.
So
whether-
it
can
have
they
to
do it
be
during
at
high
the
school?
high school.
No.
Why don't they just do it
For
for
us.
At the high school for your.
Have we done this
Can they
before?
pull weeds at the high
Our
school?
students will arrive
And
at
we
school.
have, we requested, I talked to the recreation, and we requested that there's some weed pulling and raking and whatnot at the pool. And we checked over with Rich, and that's one of the things that they can do.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's what they're scheduled to do.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay.
And they're chaperoned, apparently there's 20 kids that have signed up to do this, and there's a chaperone for 10, so there'd be 2 chaperones there.
Do they rebuild the snack shack?
Can we assign them more broadly to the Veterans Field pool / Lower Polo Grounds area so that?
It's one day, I think it's June the 6th, and it's
Yes.
from 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
So they're not gonna get a whole lot done.
So, and they're bringing them here, and there's a whole harmless, all that good stuff is what.
We've done this in the past, is that correct?
No.
No?
No, we haven't, but as long as you have something to do, for them to do,
At the pool.
and they have chaperones,
Yes,
so all you need is a motion that we approve it,
yes.
okay? Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're good. Next, we have a Skills Bank form from Heather Ike for recreation, and I think we checked, this is Heather Ike, if you don't know who Heather Ike is. She gave us her resume, we put it, you saw the Skills Bank form. There are currently 8 members on recreation, we can have up to 10, yes?
I think there's 10 now, we have up to 12.
Up to 12, but
Yeah.
I don't think we ever took off Doug Smoot, who's been living
Yeah.
elsewhere for a year already, so there's actually,
Maybe a 9 maybe.
Yeah.
With longer than-
so, and Heather expressed an interest, so I just asked if, she wanted to come, if anybody had any questions, but I think, when we have a willing volunteer.
Yeah, thank you for volunteering. Thanks.
So do we need to have an official appointing, do a motion to appoint her to the?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You are now on recreation.
Heather, tomorrow night's first meeting, 7 o'clock.
You're not joking, it is.
No, I was serious. It's right over there.
And we do have, for anyone else that's here, on the Borough website, there is a Skills Bank form. Feel free to fill one out, if there's something you want to volunteer for in town. We're always looking to have volunteers, so we'll find work for you, not to worry.
Weeding.
Weeding, no. Okay, now we're back to the Open Space Trust Fund question, and this is for us to discuss. Jack, I think you gave us kind of the marked up, and I think what we need to focus on here is the questions and answers we can deal with at any time.
Those are not part of it.
Right.
On the ballot will be the question and the interpretive statement.
So the most important thing is the concept of how we word the question, how we want to do this reuse of these funds, of this tax that's already a tax. The questions and answers we can come back to at another time. Christine, I liked your comments about what the county's doing. I don't think it needs to be in the question, but I'd like to see us included in the questions and answers later, because I think that's something that a lot of people would be interested in, which is the county has a walk, hike, bike. Is it called?
So the county
Walk, bike, hike.
Walk, bike, hike,
conducted
yes, that's it.
a very extensive survey, and they're almost finished with their plan. And it's to connect essentially the entire county with bike and walking trails.
Yeah, it's
So
very
it's Somerset County
impressive.
Walk, Bike, Hike. If you Google that, you'll find it. And the comment portion is over, but you can see the preliminary plan, and it's basically for our town, it would be a shared bike and walking path, like the kind that you can bike and walk on safely
202?
with the rules posted in it. Not on 202, but like a protected lane off 202.
Right.
So, it's great, but the county unfortunately doesn't fund it. They just give you a nice plan that, we could work towards if we want to. And it's, it's a great connection because it would connect Bernard Township all the way to Far Hills. And, there's a lot of all ages that would love something like that.
Yeah.
Even if it's just to be able to go from here, where we're at now, to, Rudy's, without having to get in your car and drive, so.
Yeah, it would be nice.
One of the things I think to stay focused on, that was mentioned by a number of people, is we're asking the voters to actually consider concept for funding. I mean, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on what to do because that, takes all the oxygen out of the room. But once the concept's there, it's for future councils to have exactly this conversation. And I think, there's no wrong answer, but I think the idea that also, a lot of what I was told, all the research that the committee did, a lot of the towns do 100%, but I think the 20% doesn't get enough billing because I do think the committee took into consideration, there is a strong constituency for having an acquisition fund, and they wanted to be sure there was at least something going into that was untouchable by future councils, a little fiscal discipline. So, nothing's being picked here. Only the council can spend money, so no money's being spent, no taxes are being raised. It just kind of gives future councils the flexibility to put 100% if there's Rushman's Farm, or if there's the other needs that were brought up, and everyone had great ideas, the hard part will be hashing out what to do. And
Every year.
every year, but just stay focused on just the concept we're being asked to consider, not, winners. I love bike trail
Yeah, I
ideas,
think
you
that'd
got
be
me on
terrific.
that, but, just stay focused on the, on what it is.
Design is on the website?
It's walk, bike, hike, Somerset or something like that.
I'll give this to you.
The plan, the design is on the website though?
Their
They're not
concept
a-
of,
Concept.
yeah.
So they provide images of what what they're proposing for us, and it's just like a picture. And it's similar to you ever did the traction line in Morristown?
Yes,
or-
all the time.
Yeah, so
And
it's like that. It's just a black top. There's no real markings, but it's a good fit for us what they're saying.
Their site also
But do
has
they turn-
existing paths in the county, and then sort of the vision of how all these
How
different
they
paths
could
would be
connect.
connected.
So they give you a vision of, this would
Right,
be a
that's
good
the word.
location,
It's a
kind of
vision.
thing.
Yes.
It's a doable thing, essentially, and
Sounds really
it's
cool.
like a supportive document for us, similar to what we have now in our borough's open space plan.
Right.
A plan, and it has a lot of input from not only our residents, but other towns. The people in Morristown, they want to be able to bike and walk here too, and the people in Basking Ridge would love to be able to, they're doing it now, they're just,
On back roads.
it's just a different.
Taking their life in their hands.
Right. And the kids, I know of kids that do walk to Far Hills on the back way that they're not supposed to be doing, but, you know, it would essentially provide like a nice, legitimate way of doing that.
But I think that the information and the reason to bring it up in the context of the referendum is that as we debate and as the public debates passing the referendum, this is a potential large expense in the future, so we have to think about it. Is that what we're saying? Like, it's not something we would have to fund.
Right. But you don't have to complete something like that all in one.
No.
You know,
You would do it in stages, as the county will be doing their own, you know, within some of their properties. So, yeah, and the other towns, Far Hills would have to do their piece, so. But anyway, so back to the question. Yes, Jeff.
I think we had, and we've discussed this at other meetings, and there are some competing ideas. And one idea is to do the 80-20, one idea is to do nothing. One idea is to leave the tax as it is, but take a one-time lump sum out of there. And various numbers have been bandied about that. But I think there's a middle ground. I'm fully supportive of the idea of having more flexibility. We do need to have development of lands and facilities that we have. But we have, I think, a lot of needs that changing to the 80-20 won't satisfy. In fact, you know, if we've looked at the list, at least the preliminary list that's been provided by the ad hoc committee, and it'll take 10 years to do that. And I don't think that certainly I, as a taxpayer, don't have an appetite to wait 10 years. And maybe I'm a victim of wanting to have immediate gratification, but I don't understand why we can't have our cake and eat it. I would advocate that this referendum calls for some large lump sum being taken out, and at the same time having an 80-20. But I am mindful of the Environmental Commission's and the Open Space Committee's idea of having it sunset so that a future citizenry can reevaluate that in 5 or so years.
Well, I think that the lump sum, with the Veterans Field at least, it failed twice there, and I really think that would be a hard sell to go into that. I mean, there's enough resistance for changing it from 80-20. I really think that'd be difficult. Also, I think, you know, to spend that money, you'd want to know where it's being spent. It's a fair question, but I think it would consume the rest of our working hours, and everyone would leave kind of unhappy with it, and I think it would be setting it up for failure. But for sunset, I mean, theoretically, this sunsets every year because the council can decide where to direct the money. So it's, you know,
but the council or future councils are going to be under immense pressure to use that portion for development and not let it sit there for acquisition, because the demands are going to be so huge. And in terms of your point about it'll be a hard sell in a referendum, I actually would argue the other way around, because there are so many other competing needs. It's not just fields, it's been pointed out. It's the pool, it's walking paths, it's other things. People are going to want to have those things. I don't think that, you know, there's a lot of senior citizens in town there who may not care too much about fields for organized sports. So I think the fact that if we take out a lump sum that would satisfy a lot more needs up front, that would actually have more palatability for people voting.
I think it would set it up for failure for people who didn't get what they want. And, you know, with this, there'll always be more demand than there is supply of money.
But they're going to get both. They're going to get the lump sum and the...
Can we hold this a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Jack, I have a question. If we wanted, with Jeff's idea, if we take $1 million out now, and this question says we're going to withdraw $1 million, do we need to put in the question what that $1 million is for or not?
No, I think we could put in there $1 million for immediate development needs.
So you wouldn't have to list the specific projects you wanted to do?
No.
You could just say we're going to take $1 million.
Right.
Well, that's what's problematic about it. If somebody says, I'm going to spend your money, I want to know where it's being spent. And unless you have an answer to that, I really think it's a hard sell.
They don't know where it's going to be spent on the...
But then we can have that conversation. Well, let's get the concept approved first.
No,
because this is...
One at a time, one at a time. Okay. Christine, let's start with you. Go ahead, we'll go this way. We'll go one at a time.
I think it's a great idea because we do have development needs for our open space.
Which is a great idea.
Yeah.
Which, the
I think-
80-20 or the...
Well, I think it should just be a flexible fund that it's, and other towns do this as well, where it's 100% either way. And the onus is always on the council, right? The way this will work is that the council is always gonna be deciding every single year what is gonna be spent on what.
By
And-
ordinance. By ordinance.
And we can go at whatever pace we want, and we can meet the needs as they arise. So it's impossible to predict the future. And I think the 100% either way would allow us to have the flexibility without having to put a referendum together again. The current fund, every penny that's in there, right, two pennies per dollar every year since
Two
it
per
started.
hundred, yeah.
2 pennies per dollar?
2 cents for $100.
Yes.
Oh. So, essentially everyone put that in to do what it's allotted for now, so we don't touch it. Because I guess that's what people voted for. And then going forward, it doesn't have to be 80-20. It's just 100% either way for any new funds collected. That's how, I think that would be the simplest. And I think that, I would love to hear everyone and anyone's feedback on it. Everyone in this room, everyone watching at home. We want to know, because to set this up for failure isn't really that's not our goal. So, I have a vision beyond what any of you can imagine of how many bike trails and walking trails we could have, and water slides for Edge Borough. But that has to be, we definitely have to think about it, and we have to get as much input as possible. So.
Absolutely, yeah, no, you're right. We originally, the ad hoc committee did talk about the 100% either or, which is what Aaron Sella, who's our consultant from the Land Conservancy, said most towns do. They do 100% either or. I think the ad hoc committee felt that might be a little too radical for the people who really want that fund, that conservation piece, which is why they compromise with the 80-20. But, it's up to the council to decide which way they want to go with that. So, thank you. No, and I love your vision. I think you have a great vision. Diane?
I think that the people voted the first referendum for the 80-20 for the open space to be 80%. I think that we have to respect what they decided with that vote and not touch what's there, period. However, going forward, I think it should be flipped, and it should be 80-20 with the 20% being definitely guaranteed for open space and the other negotiable to be for something, basically what is in the first draft of the referendum. I think, to me, that's a compromise, and it doesn't negate what the people voted for on the first referendum, and I don't think that those funds should be touched.
Okay, Tom?
So, listening to what the committees formed by ordinance presented tonight, I think I heard a couple things that they suggested. One was a sunset provision. One was broader participation or a reforming of the ad hoc committee, maybe expansion of the ad hoc committee. They talked about prioritization coming before the referendum. What I get from all of those different individual items is that they're wanting to have a balanced approach that allows us, I think, to, as one of the individuals who talked, preserve the character of Bernardsville, but also support the sports programs and the outdoor recreation programs that are not sports-specific organized sports, but other outdoor space. So I think, we'd be well advised to try and find a balanced approach that appeals to the broadest constituency in the town. I personally feel like the idea is good. I want to have access to funding to meet the needs of our current residents and our future residents. So I'd like to be able to have some flexibility. We've gone through the budget in detail, and in order to try and keep taxes as low as possible, which everybody wants, we have very little flexibility in the current operating budget. And we have challenges coming in the future, which will probably make it even harder for us to find funding for these sort of opportunities. As a result, I think that some sort of balanced approach would make sense, and I do support the idea that getting broad community input would be helpful, because the goal of this council and the ad hoc committee, I think, is to get a referendum that passes. Having a referendum that doesn't pass doesn't get any of us anything that we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely.
So I'm not suggesting alternatives as a way of saying let's do something that people don't like. I'm saying let's look at the alternatives to make sure we have the thing that the most people like. So one of the things that I suggested, and Jeff referred to it sort of offhand, was that we could take the money out and have a lump sum moved from the let's call it the non-flexible acquisition only side to the flexible side, where it could be used for either acquisition or development. And then you still have the discussions on a case-by-case basis. You'd still have to pass an ordinance to spend that new flexible amount of money, but it would preserve the concept of the way the money goes into the fund would remain the same. Maybe that's more appealing to people. If it happens to be more appealing to people, I would support that approach. If the approach that 80-20 is more appealing to people, I would support that approach as well. So I'm not against the idea at all. I'm just looking for the best solution that gets the most broadest support.
Okay.
I think the recommendation by the committee as currently constituted makes the most sense, because I think, going into the principal balance, so to speak, is sort of like being unfaithful to why it was accumulated, also mindful of it failed twice for the turf field. And like I said, to go into that money, we can't go into, we're going to take it out and spend it. Well, on what? And that's a fair question. And I really think that would be setting up for failure, because there's so many competing interests, and we'll have that. But let's just have the conversation about the concept. And worst case, for deadlock next year, if it passes and goes in acquisition. But, I think, we'll be able to pick and choose and sort of like start ticking off the boxes on some of these things. And also I think the committee was pretty astute in, putting the 20% in, because I think they were mindful of how I feel. Just observing Bernardsville, we like our change kind of slow, but it's like the 20% is sort of like, recognition that there is a constituency there to have acquisition for the sake of acquisition. I'm not totally opposed to that, but I think this kind of gives whoever's sitting up here in future years just more latitude to move, and pivot to priorities as they come up.
Okay. Jeff?
I think and I guess I'm going to argue strongly for the hybrid approach of both a lump sum takeout and then an 80-20 split for some finite period of time, and then a reconsideration. And here's why I would say that. I think if we look at the real numbers of the taxes currently now, I think is about $460,000. Is that correct?
About approximately per year. Changes every year.
So you're talking 80% of that is what, about $350 or something like that?
$360 roughly.
How much are we going to get done with $350,000? Given all this stuff we could probably put that much into the pool alone, I would bet. I just don't think that that's going to go a long way. So now what we're going to have is an incremental approach that's only going to create conflict within the town, because they're going to have these competing constituencies that are going to try and advocate for their project. And there's going to be winners and losers, and I don't think that's good for the town. If we take a lump sum out now, and it'll be our hard job perhaps to prioritize these things, but we'll be able to pick more than one thing at a time. And we'll be able to get projects done, and we'll be able to kickstart things. And it's a moonshot type approach, but I think that's what we need to do. I think in terms of the argument that we're going to be unfaithful to previous voters, well, I don't see it that way. People voted for sort of an amorphous concept of open space and the use of that open space. Now, some of that open space will be left virgin, just woods, but some of it's going to be used. And we've talked about, in fact, this council and previous councils have been faulted for not doing more with the open space we have, and they've pointed to things like Moraine Quest. So this fits totally within our master plan. So I think that we should consider the hybrid approach strongly.
Okay, now the one, we've heard from the Environmental Commission, which we sent it to, we've heard from the Conservancy, and we've heard from Open Space. We have not heard from Recreation. I think they're meeting tomorrow, and they have said they're going to discuss it and send us something. So I say, we have another meeting probably to think about it. We'll get the input from Recreation as well, and we will continue this conversation at the next
I actually
meeting.
have some more discussion that I want to get feedback from some of the other council members on. So my question, and it goes to what we were talking about, the hybrid approach, a lump sum approach, the sunset, just switching it to 100%, all different ideas that were discussed tonight. If we go with this approach where we switch to 80-20, the first year we have $360,000, and there's $800,000 worth of projects on our list, or $2 million worth of projects on our list. The question is, who goes fourth? Who goes sixth? Who waits 4 years to get the snack shack refurbished? Who's going to wait till the pool gets improved? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now? I think the hybrid approach, or the approach where we would need to sell to the public why this is an advantage to do it this way. And I think it stays true to the underlying, if you took a lump sum, and it's a hypothetical amount of $2 million and put it aside and made that flexible, you could do $2 million worth of projects. You might not get them all done in 1 year. You do them in a process and a procedure that allows you to manage them appropriately, but people don't have to wait 4 years or 6 years for their project to get funded. And if you took the lump sum and you left the underlying split the way it is, then it naturally sunsets after the $2 million is spent. And if we as a council and future councils do a good job of spending people's monies, they will allow us to do it again in 5 years, or do it again in 6 years, or 7 years, whatever the time frame is. I just think that might get broader support. And if that's something that people are willing to talk about, and if we find out people aren't more broadly supportive of that idea, then I'm willing to listen to what people have to say. But I think there's an advantage, because if somebody sitting in the audience here says, we're going to do your project for sure in 2022, they're going to feel like they're not getting their project done.
Well, I want my road paved too, and
But these are totally unrelated funds. There's totally unrelated funds.
But then what about the
Whether your road gets
environmentalists
paved
who-
does not have anything to do with this
I
amount,
understand
because
that.
this
Yep.
money can't be
Well,
used for paving roads.
That was
I
just an
understand
example.
that. It was sarcasm.
I think it's going to be, the council's decision is going to have to be
But you have-
priorities, it's going to have to be based on first safety issues. There's a lot that goes into it. And I kind of hear what John is saying about somehow if you say you're going to take money out, people are going to want to know where it's going. What are you going to spend it on? And then you'll be forced to make a list prematurely.
And I think you have
That's my
enough
concern.
unhappy people to potentially kill it. I mean, I'd just like to get the tool in the toolbox, and then we can have this conversation.
I'm not sure I agree with that assessment.
Okay. Anyway, let's wait till we get recreation, and then we'll have everybody's input, and so we'll continue the discussion.
I just have something to say. You're talking about the projects that need to be done. And they're all valid, and I agree with them, and I think they should be done, and I'd like for everyone to be done immediately. That'd be wonderful. However, that's not reality. You also have another section of the community, the people who want open space for just open space, or just a park, or just something else. The environmentalists who want it for environmental reasons. They count too. And you can't just raid funds that they've been through their committees and the referendum got accumulated. You can't just raid their funds and say, well, you don't matter anymore, we're just going to take it for our stuff and move on.
I need to answer that comment. So it's not raiding all of their funds. First of all, it's like 22% of the amount that's, I'm just answering.
No, I know.
It's 22%, and if you switch to 80-20 and it goes on past year 5, there'll be less money in the acquisition side, potentially less money in the acquisition side than if you just take the $2 million in the first place. The $2 million is kind of like having a
You're presupposing how they're going to spend the money.
Pardon me?
You're presupposing how the councils are going to spend money.
How am I presupposing?
Because saying there'll be less money left, we don't know what future councils are going to do. It just puts the toolbox in their tool, put the tool in the toolbox.
I think that if you're going to tell voters that you're going to give the governing body the ability to spend money, but don't worry, we're going to save it, you're going to have fewer people that want to vote for that referendum. You say, well, we're going to make it flexible, but don't worry, we won't spend it all.
Yeah, but what the need is.
I'm going to say it again. We're going to wait for recreation to give us their, we don't need to, we've kind of heard what everybody's opinions are. I think everybody had a chance to share.
If people still want to share, they should be allowed to share.
If
we're done, if everybody's done, then we're
Well, I think
done.
we're at the point where we're just debating, and I really don't
Well,
want to do that.
this is our chance to debate.
But we don't
a quick
have all
comment
the-
to what Diane said. She says people want to have parks. They may just want to have a park. Parks just don't happen. They get developed. If you buy land and don't do anything for it, you get Peters Track and Moraine Crest that are unusable. So there has to be some development fund. So I think, we have to, we're not raiding that fund. That's what people paid the money for. And by the way, those people can vote against the referendum if they didn't want to have it done. That's reality.
I think if a group can sincerely tell me that they volunteer to go forth in year 4, then I'd be more convinced that strategy is going to work.
You're going to have this $10 million, $1 million, it'll be the same conversation. Might as well just get the tool done, get the concept approved.
How is that different when you say get the tool done? If we vote 80-20 and that's it, people are still going to want to know what's happening to their money.
Yeah, but at least we'll have the flexibility to do it. If we do
spend $2 million,
I want to know where it's going, and we're going to have this conversation every time we meet.
We're still deciding what that $1 million or $2 million or whatever $1 million goes.
Exactly, and then it will suck all the oxygen out of the rest of the year.
It absolutely will not.
It will.
Well, I just want to hear from the people.
Okay, now we're just going.
Everybody's going to want to have their project done.
Wait, we just hang on, one at a time. We don't need to argue back and forth. We kind of know where everybody stands on everything, yes? Can we wait till we get the report from Recreation, please?
I also think maybe we've all done it on this panel, but maybe not all residents have read our current open space plan, which is very thorough and very comprehensive, and it gives a good feel of what the Open Space Committee has been working on for years and years as far as their vision of, what they envision for our town. So it's a good idea to read that if you haven't already. It's on the Borough website. It does include a little bit about fields and sports playing fields. So I think a lot of people know about that plan, but not everyone.
Yeah,
So,
and it is on the website. But I think the goal, what we're all trying to do is find a solution that the voters will approve. Because if we get bogged down in all the details and we don't make the deadline to get this question on the ballot, which is August 15th? 16th, then nothing's going to happen. So the goal is to find a plan that we feel will be supported by the majority of the community. Not just the sports people, not just the open space people, but everyone. I think as Tom pointed, we want this to be something that the community will support. That may involve, I think we've asked the Recreation as well to have their input, and then maybe we have a few public meetings to ask for the community to come in. We reach out to different groups and ask them to come and talk about what they, what they would support. We have a lot of these sports people here because we know it's important to you people. We've heard about the pool, we've heard about Peters Track, we've heard about bikes. Maybe we get, as someone mentioned, some of the seniors in, which includes me, but, and Ed, right? You and I, we can, yeah, there we go. But other groups that have been here for a while, that have some input and know what they are missing in town and would like to see in town. I know I've heard from people about wanting a dog park. That's been brought up, I don't know how many times, to the Open Space Committee. So I think, we've still got some time to keep mulling this over and thinking about it. Obviously, we've got a lot of different suggestions here on the table, so please, talk to people. Come, maybe we will have, do you think we should have maybe an open public meeting one night just on this and invite the town to come and
I think that would be helpful. That's a good idea.
So we get, maybe somebody else has a solution that we haven't thought of.
Can I have a request for some information before we have our next meetings? Because we're talking in a vacuum. We've been talking about we need this, we need that, but we have no idea what these things are going to cost. So we're talking about carving out some money to pay for things that we don't know. So do we know what a snack shack would cost? Do we know what a walking path around polo grounds would cost? Do we know what the pool fixing up would cost? If we had a sense of that, I think that would help us make our decision.
So I have a comment that goes towards your question. So last year we refurbished at Kiwanis Park the playground.
Right.
Ralph, remind me, I think it was $300,000+ to do that? That would be one full year worth of this 80%, to do the ADA compliant, safe playground, modern safe playground. Think about that. So, do you want to get the snack shack behind the playground. I mean, if we're gonna go with just this simple 80-20 approach, somebody has to wait. And I'm worried that we actually, instead of sucking all the air out of how do we spend $2 million, is gonna be sucking all the air out of this conversation of who goes first, who goes second, and who goes third.
At least we'll be able to do it. If it fails, we'll have had this conversation for nothing.
You're supposed
There's
to.
enough, there's splitting enough people off from this. It failed twice already when they tried to fund the principle.
No, it failed twice when the voters were asked if we could put $1 million from open space towards a turf field.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. Someone say, well, I'm not getting my priority, so why am I voting for it? Rather than just going forward with the concept, at least we have the tools. You can say 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, there'll always somebody be saying, I didn't get mine. So, I mean, at some point, we have to live on a budget. And it is, we're not spending money, we're not raising taxes, we're just asking that the concept be considered.
And some of these people have already waited how many years, right?
Taking the lump sum amount actually does create a budget. That's your budget, that's all you've got. Now budget your money. If you go with 80-20 in perpetuity, that's the exact concern that we were hearing from these other committees.
And you want to raid the funds to acquire land?
Well,
it's like you're talking across purposes.
I'm not talking across purposes, because what we said was that there's money that would be left over, something on the order of $5 million in the acquisition side, and that $5 million would be matched dollar for dollar in any acquisitions that we choose to make. And within 5 years, you have more money on the acquisition side than you could potentially have in the 80-20 scenario. So I think what it is a little more conservative approach, which might appeal to more people. And if it did appeal to more people, then we could go with that approach. I don't think it actually would harm any of the people who I heard supporting the 80-20 approach. It might get you what you want sooner.
But it might also fail. I think, judging by history, where it did fail twice, because people, I think, also just didn't, in principle, want to raid that fund.
But again, this is why I wanted to have this discussion.
We're going to say, we're going to do this, this, and this.
This is why I wanted to have the discussion, because I think if we can, as a council and as an ad hoc committee, communicate to the public why it makes sense, if we agree, if we don't agree on the approach. I'm not saying I'm fixed on this one approach. I'm flexible. But if we decide now, today, there's only one way to do it. It's got to be 80-20. And we don't listen to people.
Or 0-100, like Christine suggested.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, if we decide for people that this is the right approach without asking people what they like, are we, setting ourselves up for not having it pass?
The committee took the initiative to put this together, put some thought to it. So I mean,
how much did they survey the public? Did we?
Don't even do surveys, but there's enough people with enough sense of where the community's mind is at. I think it was a pretty astute approach.
There was a report that was read to us by one of our committees tonight that felt that there wasn't broad enough input taken, but that was the advice that we received from the report from the Environmental Commission.
It was a relatively close committee. It wasn't, I think the idea.
They stepped forward.
I think the idea of having an open meeting, I think the mayor's idea is the way to go.
We're not going there with the committee, the whole thing there. Let's wait, let's do that, we'll have some public input, we'll have some public sessions.
Let's keep the conversation going, I agree.
We're gonna go around all night,
Yeah.
so, I think, if we wanted to schedule public meetings, we'd have to notice it in enough time. So maybe, early June or the end of, I know we got the holiday at the end of May.
Before school gets out, for sure.
Yeah, before school gets out, maybe, when was our first meeting in
We
June?
should probably do sooner than later if we could.
Yeah, because we got that August deadline looming, we should do it soon.
Well, you need enough time to have it advertised, not just for our 48 hours, but also for the public to know about it and come. And in the summer, we don't meet every week.
On June 10th. We can't wait for this.
Our meetings, so maybe like the first week in June 2nd or 3rd or something like that.
We have an election on the 4th, but the June 3rd is the Monday before that.
Should we do it the Wednesday after the election?
It's up to me. I just can't be here on the Tuesday, is where I was going.
Right. Why, you're a little busy?
Just a little bit.
So what is that, the 4th?
The 4th is Tuesday, yes.
So maybe we shoot for that and then reach out to different groups and see if we can.
The 4th is election.
I mean the 5th.
The 5th,
The 5th.
5th is Wednesday.
Yeah, sorry.
And could we have some mechanism for people to provide input if they can't make it that night? Just so that there's, people don't feel like they had the opportunity even if they couldn't come that night. In other words, just send an email to this address or fill out this form or something. Could be an index card, anything.
We could do that. We could come up with a way for people to,
But let's just consider that as a
yeah,
possibility.
no, absolutely. If people want to have their opinions put in, we'll come up with something where they can send it, okay? Because, you know, we're just going to keep going around and around
Hey, Barb.
here. And I would like to hear what Recreation has to say, because they haven't really discussed it yet. Who's, Steve? Yeah. So that'll be your first meeting.
It'll be 7 o'clock at the same time, or it's up to you, I'm just.
I think we should keep it at
Yeah,
the same time.
yeah, I think 7 o'clock would be good. So if we do a special meeting just for community input, and we'll have to come up with some kind of forum so it's organized. And does that sound like a plan? People okay with that? Okay. We're good? Oh, before I do, Ralph, you had given me something about food stock. Was it you?
Yes.
You want to just explain that quickly, because I'm sorry, I didn't really, this is something you want to do with the employees, or you want us to do it
Yes.
too?
Well, yeah, just to notify the entire council. There are brothers that are in our auditing firm.
Right.
For the last couple of years, well, more than that, I guess about 5 years, have just started a food collection process on their own. And they have incorporated, I guess, a number of municipalities as not their auditors, but to go to the employees, being asked to go to the employees and see if they give them how they're doing this, where it's going, what it's for, and just to see, get canned food.
Right.
From the employees for hungry children throughout the country. And they have been, I guess they've expanded it over the last 5 years to, I think they're over like 100,000 pounds that they've collected. And they want to, just continue it. So they asked me, and, it's all, as I say, it's funded. I said, we have to give it to everybody. I did email you and Jack, and Jack said it can be done.
So this would be like, I think it says we can select which food bank we want it to go to.
Well, yeah, I said, they said anywhere you want it to go, and I said, I really don't know.
Which would be the Somerset County one that's.
There's one in Somerset County, you pointed out a couple in Morristown. So.
That were Somerset County.
I didn't know that.
Actually, there's one, the Presbyterian Church has a food pantry too, don't they?
Oh.
Right here in town.
Right. So it's just an idea to.
Well, you have to RSVP by May 15th, that's why it was. So is this would be for the whole community to donate, for anybody that wants to donate?
They're just, it really just a collection from our employees, but it can be branched out. I mean, they weren't trying to go solicit door to door.
Yeah, I mean, does anyone have a problem with people donating food to a food bank?
No.
Employees? I think we're good with that. Yeah.
I thought also.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to let you all know.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Next is the mayor's update. So just what I've been up to. April 23rd, we had a representative from Congressman Malinowski's office come to listen to the airplane noise in town. He was duly impressed. So actually, the Steve and Diana Kramer have been working on that, and he has been helping us with trying to get a meeting with the FAA, yeah, to see if we can't do something about the airplane noise. So.
Did they go to one location in town? Or
no,
multiple?
we went to about 5. Jeff was with us too, yeah. We went to about 5 different locations. And he became very clearly aware that there is a problem. So, we also had a grand opening of City Gym. April 24th to the 26th, I attended the Mayor's Conference in Atlantic City. Oh, that's what we didn't get to. At which Steve Sweeney presented his Path to Progress, which I think you all had a copy of. And they had a resolution that I don't know if we're, as a council, want to support his Path to Progress, or if you want to discuss it, or do nothing. But I had given you all that information on what it is.
Are you opening it up for discussion now?
Yeah,
Yeah, there are parts of it I would approve, but there's parts of it I would oppose, and there's a lot of parts of it that I don't understand. And, and there's stuff in there about the burden that would be placed on the local municipalities that we haven't had a chance to vet, so I don't think we can support this.
I would need more time.
There's a
I was
lot
away
in
for
there.
4 days, I didn't get to see it really.
Yeah, it's rather extensive. I mean, some of them on the, pension reform and health benefits reform makes sense. Some of it gets, I think I agree with you, Jeff, it gets really.
Well, it's shifting the burden from the state to the municipalities.
On some of it.
And it includes everything, and it also includes all K through 8 school systems being bundled into other school districts, for example.
Well, yeah.
It's all part of Senator Sweeney's grand plan, and not that I'm opposed to those, but we haven't had a chance to discuss it. So how can we vote on something we can't discuss? Nor have we had a chance to talk to Ralph and our administrators to say, for example, the proposals relating to pension and health benefits, what does that mean to us and our bottom line? They're shifting the burden to us, and I think we need to push back on that.
There, by the way, anybody in the public, if you just look up, paths to progress, Google that, you can read the whole report. There's a lot of information there. So it was just, we had a letter asking us if we would support it. That's why I shared it. So that's.
So will we bring this thing up in a future meeting, or is this?
If you wanted to, well, maybe we should break it into pieces and assign it to the committees. Like maybe the personnel committee could look at the pension piece and the health benefits piece, and we can kind of look at it in different, because it's a lot in one big document.
It's about 40 pages or something.
Yeah,
like
so
that,
if we
yeah.
break up each topic, maybe we can break it down. And
Jack, can you see if there's a logical split and say this goes to finance, this goes to, this
it
goes
would.
to personnel, this goes to public works or whatever?
And then even, if we don't want to support it, maybe we put a letter together with our opinion of it, back to Sweeney and say, this is, we reviewed it and this is how we feel about it, and, offer our own suggestions.
Okay.
April 27th, we had e-cycle day, which I thought was, how much did we collect, on the e-cycle? It was pretty full, thank you, Christine, for helping out with that.
That was Bob Baker and the Green Team. And they worked very hard, and the Public Works Department helped out.
I know, and we had a lot of employees there helping out, so. April 29th, we had, Jeff was there too, Chefs Unite, which was Community in Crisis's fundraising, which was really, they had 30 chefs there. Very big event and very successful. April 30th, I went to the Chamber of Commerce Social at Plaza Tikal, and the chamber is kind of kicking up its efforts, so I think they're working hard. May 3rd, I went to the Intergenerational Golden Prom, which was fun. That went pretty impressive because the high school students put on this whole dinner dance for the seniors in the community. It was really, and everything is donated. The food is donated. Every course of the meal is a different restaurant. They had door prizes where almost everybody won, and the kids were really, serving and dancing with people, and it was really a really great event that they do there. May 6th, the library had their volunteer luncheon. They have a tremendous amount of volunteers, but they could always use more. So, the Wellness Committee met as well and are thinking about doing a fall fitness crawl like Morristown does. So we'll be trying to work on that, where you go from gym to gym, like you do a class in one gym and you go to the next gym, and then maybe you go to another place and have a yoga class or a meditation or a lecture on health, and it's a whole day of activities. So that's what we're going to try and put together. We have, don't forget, the Dad's Day Dash on Father's Day, and Jen Morrison has been doing a free class for people that wanted to get in shape for it, so as part of the Wellness Committee. And then May 8th, I went to the Morris Union Federation of Libraries annual meeting, which we are part of, and it was very impressive how much intersharing there is. Like if you want a book and we don't have it in our library, they can get it from the libraries that are in this federation. So it's really been, and it's been around since 1971, we've been a member. So very impressive group. So that's kind of what I've been up to. And do we have any correspondence?
I don't have any correspondence.
Okay. Oh, here was the path to progress, because that was a letter.
Oh, that's
That was where it was, okay. Do we have any unfinished business? Anything we?
We have the organic to synthetic thing, is that unfinished business?
Yes, that is unfinished business, thank you. So, the letter that was read to us by the Little League was concerned that right now we don't have anything in place because we're still researching how to do the organic properly. So how does the council feel about moving forward with this?
I kind of, oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe Doug, you can answer. If they apply pesticides to the fields, how long are the fields closed from anybody going on them?
The only pesticide we use on the field is the growth control, usually around the August time frame. And once the product is dry, once it's on the ground, it's usually 24 hours.
That's not enough time. But what about, there's no chemicals or anything in any of the stuff that's would go on?
Oh yeah, there's chemicals, but it's not a pesticide.
Okay, but is there, for any chemicals that get put on the field, what is the duration that no one can go on the field after?
Once the product is dry, it can be applied on. So it takes a couple hours.
Okay.
So what's the next treatment? You said 3 weeks, what would that be?
It's going to be the end of May, the beginning of June.
I want to go organic, I'll tell you right now. However, I understand the predicament that everyone is in at this moment because we're in like flux land. I would be willing to be okay with continuing what we were going to do for this year only, but you'd have to increase the amount of time that no one is allowed on the field after you put some kind of chemical on it. Because I don't think until it dries, I'm not comfortable with that.
Mhm.
And a pesticide, I'm not comfortable with 24 hours.
Right. I'll just give a kind of a summary because since I've been working on this, Doug and I have been working on this for over a month now, maybe longer. We spent a lot of time researching to try to dispel some of the common misconceptions that are going around regarding organic versus synthetic, right? Including going to elected officials and parks departments of neighboring towns, Bernards Township and Chatham. Both of those towns are, I would say, have a similar demographic, and I feel like we can identify with a lot of those families in terms of what we want for our kids and what we expect in living where we live. So both of those towns are trying or in the process of minimizing the use of synthetic pesticides, both for environmental and health reasons. We've gotten feedback from our environmental commission, and I asked for feedback from REC, but I think they haven't met yet. So based on what we heard from Bernards and Chatham, and Doug, you can jump in anytime, but it was found that they are taking somewhat of an integrative approach, but it prioritizes that the healthier treatments are used in the, from the get-go, and they don't resort to harsh chemicals unless absolutely necessary. As of right now, one of the steps in this process is to get soil testing to determine the health of our soil. And since we decided, to go the route of doing it in the least expensive way possible, we still haven't done that yet, but it's going to get done hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Once we have those results, we'll know for sure, but at this point in time, I think for this year, because this kind of snuck up on us, it snuck up on me when I got these, the full details of what was actually being applied. And I think it's in the best interest of everyone in town to really take a look at each one, because in fact, they all have different, how long you can, they all have different pages and pages of what you should be doing, which are the proper, the proper application process. So, I've read through this and I can just give you some of this is all, by law, the pesticide companies are required to give us these MSDS
Right.
sheets that tell us exactly what the precautions are and exactly what the health problems are. So the organic, I didn't highlight anything on here because there's really not anything on that one. But some of the other ones, this is something that Jeff talked about, which is the chronic effects. So, you're not necessarily seeing an instantaneous illness, but chronic illness is what I'm concerned about too, because, a lot of these, this is the fact sheet from the manufacturer, right?
So it's worse.
And this is also from 2014. So we have to really, do our homework, and that's what I've been doing, and with the help of many residents who have the same concerns as me. None of them could come tonight, but, I'll make sure that, if you want to hear from them, that they come. You've already heard from some of them, but,
Well, and I think the point you're making is valid, and I think nobody, I think we all agree that
Yeah.
we want to get away from these if we can.
Mhm.
But I think what Little League is saying is that you can't just suddenly, we can't just stop.
I agree with that.
So I
But we
think
also
what-
can't put this one especially, 2,4-D, and just Google it. I mean, you won't want to be anywhere near it.
But I think,
And
we have
that's
to-
what's been applied.
Let's be clear
in the
though,
past.
some people are talking about fertilizers and other people are talking about pesticides, so they're not all lumped the same.
Of course not.
And I know, but we have to be careful to make sure that we're not conflating the two. I do think that,
So
listen,
that,
I'd love to go organic fully as well, but that has to be part of an integrated program, and we don't have that in place now.
No, I agree.
so my goal, and I think Doug is the finance guy, so he knows more about that portion of it than I do, but I mean, I don't think it's completely out of the question for us to, move towards 100% organic.
I didn't hear
Maybe
anybody
not-
being opposed to organic. I think it was just the
No,
transition
but-
was like
right.
too stark. I mean, we have a contract, we can only do X. We can't do an integrated approach this year. I say stick with synthetics. We don't, at least if the fields are in good shape, when we have the know what we're doing and maybe go next year. I think that makes the most sense to me.
Well, I'm saying, I
Unless-
would do that, but I would increase the amount of time that someone cannot be on the field after whatever it is you put down that has chemicals in it.
But how long would that be?
Because, what?
How long would that be? I mean,
Well, no, just
They all
increase the
tell
time. I mean, if they say it's like 24 hours, well, it's not, it's gonna be more than 24 hours, so make it be 48 hours. I mean, I'm just saying, whatever their recommendation is, I would make it double what they're saying.
Right.
in
So
the
I just
meantime.
we also got feedback from Bernards Township, from the horse's mouth, who was the person who handles all the fields. His name is George, and he gave us really detailed explanation how they do everything, because there's a lot of factors involved. Entry onto fields, how many kids are going on and off the field, each day. It all has to be accounted for, and a member of the public earlier brought up closing fields in order to maintain,
Right, it
if you're
would-
playing on a wet field, you're gonna, it has an effect on the quality of the grass. And that's why Bernards Township closes their fields a lot, and they communicate a lot about when the fields are closed. And that's what has to be part of all this. So in any case, without the soil test, we really can't say about, what we're gonna apply next. And if there's a severe problem, I mean, I was at Challenger Day, and it didn't seem like there was any type of severe problem. It was awesome. All the kids were having an awesome time, and nobody was.
Started missing things yet.
And I get it. And if the way Bernards Township handles it, if I'm right, the way they explained it to us is that if there's a problem, they, you know,
Use
turn,
synthetic.
they turn to a synthetic if needed.
I'm sorry, can we talk?
Well, I think just you, Greg, because you presented it, so.
Yeah,
why
I'm
don't
not
you-
an expert, but like was down there, and there are definitely patches already that are coming, that are probably representative of cold, wet springs, that I think turn to like blank spots as it gets drier and hotter, which we definitely did not have in the past. So while it might be a mask now, I think we will start to see the effects. Once that's done, obviously, it's planting new grass, so, you know, like I said, our season goes through the summer, and then we take off in August, and then we're back for September and October. So, you know, at that point, the kids are done, the season's over, anything could happen. But obviously, once you get to bare spots in the field, it's not going to regrow magically while kids are playing games on them. So I think that's what we're trying to hope to avoid to get to those spots. I mean, I think, I don't know, I certainly haven't seen all the fields, and I would defer to Doug if he's seen different things, but that's what I see already. So it does look like grass. There is grass. It's not the grass that was uniform a year ago. And certainly the areas in between, you know, many of you were kind enough to come down and walk the place. What's in between is what happens when it's not treated. What we were doing now is what will happen to the, that's what the common area is. What we're doing now is what the common area is. It's just an organic treatment. And I think we can all see in the common areas, it's very different than the playing field. So I don't know when or how long that process takes to deteriorate, but it's changing, and it will just get worse as I think the weather gets hotter and drier. That would be my
Please,
limited
we
understanding.
wish the weather would get hotter and drier.
I would take some dry, warm weather.
Yeah.
But I do worry that by July, August, like,
Yeah.
we will show some like really hard.
Does this decision we have to make, don't they have to put the fertilizer down within the next 2 weeks?
No, it's not. What has to be done in the next 3 weeks, Doug?
We have another we have a 5-step program.
Right.
We've already missed the pre-emergence. We've missed that for the year. So now there's different.
So we're at step 2.
Yes, which is a fertilizer, and then they also have it also has a herbicide in it to keep the weeds down.
Is that a spot treatment
What's
or
it
the
called?
whole area?
No, the whole area.
Whole area.
Do you know what it's called?
Inside the fences, right?
Sorry.
Just inside the fences, the common areas, the pool, the playgrounds, all those areas. So it's Claremont Field, inside the fence, Rose Bowl, inside the fence, Kiwanis, inside the fence.
The merit was the pre-emergent, or are you talking about?
No, merit is for the growth control.
That's coming. If
Yeah.
we want,
What-
I don't want, it,
That
but
would
if
be
they
later
want.
in the year.
Christine asked the question, what product's going on at
I don't
treatment
have,
2?
I don't have the gun sheets for the.
Could you send that to the council? What's going
I
on
think
for
it's
treatment 2?
Razor Pro, does that sound right?
No, Razor is for the warning tracks.
Can you send us
Okay,
what's
so
going on in
that's,
treatment 2?
that is glyphosate. I'm just saying that for the record, because
What is it?
That's bad,
glyphosate, maybe I'm,
Is treatment two?
glyphosate
however you
is
say it.
Riverdale Razor Pros, that's the name they call it, and that is, there's already been cases in California where people who contracted non-Hodgkin's lymphoma have successfully sued and won that the cause was this chemical.
I think
And
there
this
was
is
a couple of
treatment 2?
cases.
I'm sorry?
I'm trying to clarify. Is this what they're putting on at treatment 2?
This is warning tracks
This is what they treat the warning tracks with.
Which don't have
Only the
grass.
Only the rose.
for weeds.
The warning grass, well, only the Rose Bowl doesn't have grass, and that gets this treatment.
That's correct.
And then how long can nobody be on that?
Yeah.
I think it's 24 hours.
Wait, don't think. Right here.
Most of the applications say until it's dry.
But again, I think back to what Little League is saying is, I don't think anyone on the council is against going organic, you know, having a completely organic, but we don't have what the difference in the cost is going to be. Right now, our budget does not support anything but True Green, right? I mean, we have a contract with True Green.
Right. We don't have an organic program,
Right,
so we don't know what the cost would be.
right.
Okay, we don't have the soil samples. The
Right.
contractor that we met with, I guess probably 5-6 weeks ago, was gonna put a program together for us.
Right.
He's gonna come out and do the testing. We never heard back from him, we reached out to him several times. And so now, we're trying to do it with volunteers to get the
But
soil tests.
that program's gonna be for next year though,
But-
right? Not this
Yes,
year.
well, that's what we're saying, is right now,
I
we're
know,
not
so that's
doing
what we need to
anything, and they've
decide.
got this tournament coming up that we're gonna be embarrassed by what the fields look
There
like.
are other, I mean, we were told by that minister that they experiment on one field. Miller Lane with just organics. And I think the feeling is that it's been not been a success. But again, like, I think like it's for you guys to explore all these options. We're just asking that what worked for the last 2 years and make it look so great. Just give us the next 4 or 5 months.
Next season.
And then take your time and make a great judgment out of it. And then I'm sure you guys will come up with the right decision once you've had a chance to weigh all the information. But it's like no information now, and there's no plan. And we know
And nothing's getting done.
Well, we just know that the plan in place right now will lead to a deterioration of the field. There shouldn't be like a doubt about that.
So Doug, do you want?
Just a reminder, the plan that we were working under the last 2 seasons and anticipated using this year is a hybrid approach. The common areas,
Right.
playgrounds, things like that are organic, library, organic, inside the fences in the play area.
Right.
Even the T-ball field is organic.
Right, yeah, you can see that.
It's the two playing areas inside the fence at Kiwanis, Claremont, and Rose Bowl, where it's synthetic.
Who uses the Rose Bowl field, Doug?
Softball.
What age group?
I partner with the softball program in town. It's basically mostly 7-year-olds, they start to transition out of T-ball and girls, and it goes through.
7 to 14.
If you've ever watched Little League games, there's not a lot of balls that are hit to the outfield. Like kids generally stand in the dirt. I mean, we have children too that are playing, so obviously I wouldn't want them in any harm.
Sure.
Anybody's kids in harm, so, you know.
Greg, did we get input for your letter from softball?
Everybody that's on the board is represented. I mean,
I'm just asking. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
that represents all baseball and softball. That's
Baseball and
Little League
softball?
encompasses both of them.
And I guess we don't have fields that we're treating that are used for soccer, grass fields anymore for soccer or lacrosse.
No, actually, the Evan Cow.
So they're part of it as well.
The Evan Cow is treated with synthetics.
The other, I mentioned earlier that we did reach out to Chatham, and they said that their transition was to just stop everything. They don't do anything. They just cut high. And seed, I think they said, slit seed to make the grass healthier, but they don't apply anything.
But they have
Not
enough
even-
fields that they can rotate them. Yes?
According to Ray, it sounded like they had a surplus of fields.
Yeah.
Kids. I wouldn't necessarily say
Because
that's
that, if you have the luxury of being able to rotate fields, it's,
If you guys had 2 more Little League fields, I'd gladly go to them and let these
Yeah.
things, play fallow for a year. But, this season is what it is, and look at us, and everybody wants to be on those fields, they're great. So.
I don't think the request is unreasonable, just to get us through this year as we figure out what we're gonna do versus just make a knee-jerk, about face.
so can we agree to finish out what we started with True Green?
Or maybe
with
give it
the
a 48
original
for,
plan? And while we're working on the data for next year?
The fields aren't used in August or within throughout application.
I'm okay if you
Well, then
double
I
the
say we don't
time
put
to
that
stay
on.
off of them after the application.
Unless it
For
has
this
some
year.
benefit for the following year. But the kids aren't there.
In August, when we do
my kids play on
the-
fields
There's no
when
kids
there's
on the
no
field
team.
then?
The Little League is not operational in August.
So you're suggesting that would be a good time to do road control?
That,
No one's
you
on-
said you would do it anywhere.
Yeah.
And signs get put up on the fields that?
Yes.
Yeah, they always do that.
I would be okay with that for this year, just increasing the times, but just for this year, then not. And then putting together some kind of a plan for next year.
And next year, ideally, we would have like an integrated pest management like Bernards Township has, at least.
Yeah.
Integrated meaning
Like a real
like,
plan.
and there's a very good source, if you want to read about integrated pest management, that I could share with you. It's on the DEP's website. The DEP is in support of IPM, but they also are very pesticide oriented. And there's a whole section about school IPM. So, I mean,
Yes, I
there's
had
a lot of
one.
different ways you can do this. I wouldn't subject kids, whether they're in baseball or any other sport, even if they're just playing on the field to play on it, which the field behind my house gets a lot of play, even when, there's just general play on it. not on a team. But I wouldn't vote to put any of these, what's listed in True Green's plan, just based on what they're telling us.
The current plan.
And what I've found to be true, like the main thing about the glyphosate and why people are saying that, or glyphosate, however you say it, Roundup is how you've probably seen it in the media recently, and it is, the company Bayer was testing their product to determine that it was safe, right? And all of those tests have been found that were not true or correct because they were using human cadavers and they were burning them before they exposed them to the chemicals so that it wouldn't penetrate. And then that was what they were saying was why it was safe.
Yeah.
So,
And they lost two big
can't
lawsuits.
feel good about
So,
that.
so what you're saying is you don't want to do anything now at all? Like you don't want to use any chemicals as of right now?
Unless there's like some kind of health problem that we have to, like an infestation of something or, I mean.
Okay.
So we vote just to sort of.
So, yeah,
See what it shakes
Diane,
out.
you're okay if we do it, if we just keep the kids off a little longer than normal? Like-
Just for this year.
Okay.
Then next year, I don't want to.
But we're not using Roundup.
Yes, we are.
It's something like it.
Well, but it's.
That
it's-
chemical is in
Well,
Roundup.
the glyphosate's in the other chemical, but is it the same concentration? Is it a different concentration? How does, it's not the same as Roundup, so the question is it equally to be condemned?
Well, that's the sheet you have, though, you have the MSDN.
The MSDS that we got from True Green is from 2002. So if you consider that current and accurate info, then,
Tom,
mean,
what do you think?
Well, I guess my question would be, I think we don't use this Roundup type product on any grassed areas. This Roundup type product, if it's used, is on the warning track at the Rose Bowl and nowhere else, is that correct? Would it be acceptable to the teams to not put the Roundup product on the warning track at the Rose Bowl, but continue with the rest of the program?
Yeah, I mean.
Is that the most concerning one? Is that?
well, I won't vote for
doesn't want
that,
any of
but.
them. She
yeah.
doesn't want any. She
I
said no.
No, I asked a
You're
different
not
question.
gonna
I
get-
asked the question was, is that the most concerning product, or are the other products?
I mean, as I mentioned too, there are residents who have come to me about this and
That's actually the one we know about.
that's one of the main,
So your answer
definitely
is cold,
cancer-causing, but-
cold turkey.
but 2,4-D was the other one, and that is, a component of Agent Orange, I mean,
Does that go on grass?
that is, so the other thing I forgot to mention was that this had come up in a council meeting in 2015, and I think I sent it around to most via email. And that was before Doug's tenure here, and it was, the person who does our True Green now came and presented and talked about, this program that he's doing now, right? It's the same as it was when he, yeah.
Well, what happened was, to Christine's point, the council voted to do the Kiwanis all organic. Everything else stays synthetic. The Kiwanis was switched over to ball fields. And then there was a negative impact. The Little League came, and that's when we came up with the hybrid, which was the common areas are the organic and the playing area.
How long was it, 1 year, and the negative impact was noticeable?
Pretty immediate, yeah.
Was it an integrated approach, or was it sort of an ad hoc approach, like we
No,
were?
it was just go to the organic.
Which was for-
the entire Kiwanis, inside the fence, outside the fence. So that's when we came back, I guess, the end of 16, and said we want to do the
Do the
hybrid.
half and half.
Council approved the hybrid, continue to do outside the fence, the play area, play field area, outside the fence, and the organic, but transition back to the synthetic inside the field.
I'm okay resuming the hybrid approach.
to stay with that till we have a full
Till we have,
plan in place.
the whole, a plan
Right,
and a budget.
yeah. Jeff?
Yeah, well, again, I'll reiterate, I think we have to be talking about two different things. One's fertilizer, the other's pesticides, actually three things, and herbicides. Having said that, I think, we can't make a knee-jerk reaction. We have to have a plan, one way or the other. There has to be a plan for it. So, in the absence of that, we have to continue with the hybrid, I think.
Well, keep in mind, if you fertilize, and this is something I've learned throughout this too, from Chris Moran, and he's saying, or he said that if you fertilize, you're also fertilizing the weeds. Like, the weeds like it too, so.
Right, but he talked about a very comprehensive integrated plan that really fed the soil so that actually prevented everything from happening. We don't have any of that in place. That's going to, we have to embark on that, and I think that ought to be our goal going forward. But we have to make a decision for the next 2 weeks.
But is the reason we have to make a decision for the next 2 weeks is what?
There's a
Because
treatment
that's the
coming up.
next treatment coming up. So we either have to say yay or nay.
But what is the treatment? What
Next
chemical?
2 or 3 weeks.
But what chemical?
For the second round, the spring fertilization, it does have some herbicides in it, but we don't put pesticides down.
Right, so it's barricade, or, what, I guess. This is the only
Okay.
one that says herbicide in the MSDS sheets.
So,
It causes liver, thyroid problems. I'm just
I
telling you
know, I know.
what they
Go ahead
say
and tell us what it
it
says.
causes, and I don't want to scare everybody or anybody, but I'm just saying, like, I'd like to make sure before we apply something that we're all understanding what's
What it
being
is.
applied.
I have no doubt that these things are all endocrine disruptors,
And
which we're
herbicide
surrounded by in
kills.
this world.
Yeah.
But, I'm also not prepared to go cold turkey and say stop completely, so,
so what we're actually, I guess we have to, because we had a resolution to just stop a couple weeks ago or a month or so ago. So what we're looking at now is to revote, take another motion to say if we want to maintain the hybrid plan while we work on this organic plan. Yes, so everyone is in favor of getting to the organic plan, but to do it in a thoughtful, determined way. So can we have a motion that we maintain the hybrid while we work on the plan?
Can I just ask if the warning track weed killer, is that part of this motion?
Can we lose that? Do you want to lose that?
Is it?
Is that a work for you guys, or?
If we lose that?
I mean,
It means you're going to have to get down on your hands and knees and
weeds, right?
pull the
So-
weeds.
High school
But
kids.
we like good grass in the infields and outfields, and then at some other point, we want to discuss how weeds are going to be pulled. We'd welcome that discussion as well.
Well, some people from Basket Ridge.
Yeah, let's get.
We have some kids coming.
I talked about that when we had Little League, so, we already have, the green team has a doctor park, and a lot of those families are doing like a monthly,
Weeding.
they don't weed, they pick up garbage, so,
Oh, maybe they could weed.
I was gonna come up with a new division of parks where
Oh, I like that.
the families can weed too, because there's a volunteer requirement for our schools, high school and middle school, and a lot of those kids, I think, would, not only would they be willing to do something like that, but they actually find it fun, so, I mean, we have a structure in place with the doctor park, so if we just expand it,
Yeah,
then
that's a
we
good idea.
can.
I like that.
We
Okay?
can meet the need of over at least the next few weeks, and I think that's a better option than.
Okay, so what we're proposing now, the motion, if I understand correctly, is that we don't do the, what do you call it?
The warning track at Rose Bowl.
Warning track at Rose Bowl, but we maintain the current hybrid program.
approach For
But-
2019, while we
Right.
parallel
Additional
investigating.
time while we continue to investigate
IPM
and
program.
the full IPM organic program.
And we double the time that the kids can't go on the field.
And we increase the time.
and
Does that interfere with the
and
schedule?
the idea,
So what recommendation are you talking about as far as the time?
It's hard to manage.
Just-
I don't know what.
Well, now it's
Well, I think when they put,
24 hours,
when
so
you
it'll
put
be
the sign
48
out,
hours.
Doug, you put a sign, stay off the field for X amount of time or
We
something?
would have to, well.
When you
well,
put on a
we speak with-
treatment?
When we speak with the person that does the application, okay, treatment, they say, the recommendation is until it dries.
Right.
Which is an hour, hour and a half.
So if we
If
said,
use that afternoon. If we want to close it for 2 days, then we'll just have
Or
to
just, we'll close it for a day.
well,
An hour
if
is
it
not
says it dries in an hour and they put it on
It's really
in,
tough. It's really
2
tough.
hours.
We have teams playing
No,
all.
then I would say 24 hours minimum. I would say 24 hours, and if they say a day, then I would make it 48 hours.
Then we would need the
Hey, you want
fields
my
to be-
vote, this is
they-
what
they-
it's
they
gonna
would need-
cost
They would need to
you.
be treated on Friday morning, because we don't have teams playing there most Fridays.
That's not universally true either, so it's a really, it's really,
how about if they treat it like midnight? That'll cost extra. Saturday, you play every day, you're on the fields every day?
Monday through Thursday, on most fields, it's Monday through Thursday and Saturdays. The Rose Bowl gets played on Fridays.
I understand the sentiment of why we want to sort of make it longer than what it is, but then I think the question that I would have is, well, why did we have the recommendation from the manufacturer for till it's dry? Well, if, you know, is there a reason why, and then we go, well, let's make it 24, well, why not 36, or why not 48? Why not 72 at that point?
Well, I'd
Ju-
like
just
to
a
not
little
have it
bit-
on at all, but,
Logistically,
you know, I'm
I
trying to
just don't have any
compromise,
advantage.
and that's what my compromise is
Okay.
for this year.
Okay.
So we either have to motion that we're gonna put
Right.
some number of additional hours into this,
No,
or the motion would be, we're gonna do the hybrid approach as we've done last year, with the one exception, which is the warning track at Round Top does
Right.
not have a.
Rose Bowl.
Rose Bowl.
Rose Bowl, sorry.
I know, it's late.
The warning track at Rose Bowl would not get the weed killer treatment.
Right.
That's the only difference
And,
between
right,
last year and this year.
And we put together a
While in
comprehensive
parallel-
plan. Right.
But I'd
And get
hope
this
that our
out.
resolution says, though, that as a council, our aim is to go organic in 2020.
Right,
Yeah,
with,
that's
we
part
could
of the
say, with the
resolution.
intention of achieving.
Is this something we do by voice tonight, or?
You can do it by motion tonight.
But- So you're
Yeah.
not giving me the extra time?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
Well, then-
Okay. Whatever the manufacturer's recommended is, but so, yes, so moved?
I'll move. Mr. Hines hasn't moved yet.
Okay. Second, anybody?
I'll second it.
Okay, so what do we do? Voice vote?
I would take a roll call. and let it-
Roll call, I mean?
Can we
Yeah,
just
sorry.
state the whole thing so we all know what we're voting on, because there's been a lot of back and forth. Anthony,
So
what
Jack,
have
could you
what have
say-
you got written down that's gonna be official?
Oh, Anthony, or?
Go ahead.
You ready? Okay.
I have maintained hybrid while working on an IPM organic plan for 2019, or 2020, I'm sorry, that's 2020. Don't do the warning track at Rose Bowl, which means no weed killer at the Rose Bowl. And we're not doing the increase the time the kids have to stay up, or are we?
No.
No weed
Right
killer
now we're
on
not.
the warning
On the
track.
warning, right, we're not doing weed killer on the warning track at Rose Bowl.
And you're following the manufacturer's recommendation as to time.
Tom Fowler.
Right.
Manufacturer recommendation for the time that they have to be off the field.
Yes.
So that first part, we're working on the IPM organic plan for 2020, I'm sorry, so that's
Yeah.
a
With the goal, maybe you're not working on, but with the goal of achieving,
goal, okay.
yeah,
Can you draft, can we ask Jack to draft
to
that?
make it legal easy, yeah, we could do
Because
that.
I can, there's like, I can send you the sample if you want.
But Doug, you want to do it this evening?
No, yeah, we want to do this right, this is just a motion right now, so that Doug knows what to do in 2 weeks,
Mhm.
okay? So, we got the motion. We had a second?
I was.
Okay, so now we're going to do a roll call vote.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Springfield?
No.
Mr. Hatton?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Ms. Zamara?
No.
So 3-2 is a victory, yes? For-
Yes.
Okay, so it's passed. Okay, so Doug, now you know what to do in 2 weeks. In the meantime, Christine and Doug, you'll keep working on this with Public Works Committee, be working on it in the committee?
Is it okay if Jack drafts an integrated pest management, like, resolution for us? Similar to Bernards Township, they have an integrated pest management resolution?
Well, I think until we have all the data, what the costs are, what's involved, you know, who.
But to her point, we're saying that that's what we're researching, right? That's
Yes.
not what
So
we're doing.
you can see.
This is what we're gonna research.
Oh, yeah, okay, so we'll have a draft of what
What we
it
would
would
be
look
researching.
like.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that way we'll know what we're getting
right,
if we decide to go that route.
yeah, that's a good idea, okay. Okay, no other unfinished business. Any new business?
Oh, yes, there's a pool open house.
Oh, yeah.
May 24th.
What was it, 5 to 7?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, 5 to 7 p.m.
Trying to RSVP to the rec department. And I mentioned this once before, but the Safe Routes to School travel plan that our borough has is a little outdated, so I've been trying to work on getting it updated. And I'm meeting with the county RideWise official that can help me with that on June 11th at 8:30 a.m. And I invite whoever wants to come. And I'll invite you officially, Doug, too, if you want to come.
June 11th, 8 a.m. RideWise
Yeah. 8:30.
8:30.
here.
No, at the county at Grove Street, 20 Grove Street. And I've spoken to them and spoken to the school board, not the school board, the superintendent about the numbers of kids. So that the numbers of kids that use little pathways to school. And when I say little pathways, one of them is off Old Army. You go up Locust, and there's like a pathway that takes you right out to the turf. There's another one of those little pathways that the kids on Chestnut use to get to school. And there's another group of kids that live up Anderson Hill where we just lowered the speed limit. And they want to all walk to school. So I'm hoping that coordinating all those families, we're going to do mini walk audits with each of those. We already did one on Locust. We're going to do the other two. And this is just a matter of me getting the feedback from each of those groups. And find out, what their wish list would be. And then the representative from the county helps update the travel plan. And then, this is kind of a very quick summary, but once your travel plan is updated, then you become eligible for some grant money, hopefully, to get those paths fixed up.
Fix them up and pave them or make
To
them
help
gravel.
fund that, right.
Oh, good, okay, thank you.
One more thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's come up. Did we mention the household cleanup day on May 18th?
Oh, no.
No, we did not.
Okay, so on this Saturday, May 18th, from 9 to 4,
You have to bring
there's
it.
household cleanup day at the Pill Hole Road dump. For want of a better word, I'm not sure if it's a dump, but recycling facility. They'll pick up mattresses, box springs, things like that.
Right, we'd have to bring it there. I
Yes.
know there's some people putting it out at the curb already. I was like,
No, we
no.
we don't do pickup. But it's just just reading a notice, just to make sure there's no hazardous pickup for that.
And no
site.
tires, right?
You're right, no tires.
Okay, thank you. So we have executive,
5 minutes.
5 minutes, you always say 5 minutes.
No, it's one item, 5 minutes.
But Jack's gonna.
And we may come back out of session, do we usually say that?
We will not be coming back, so, yeah, so, somebody want to move that we go to executive?
Move to adjourn to conclusion of closed session.
I'll
Second?
move. Second. What do you need me to do?
Okay, so we are now in closed session. Thank you all for hanging in there.